Another round will bring you down. Another round won't save you now.
Yeah, reverse sweep coming up.
Big win for the Camelot Kings here, Dan. The Valkyries have done it not since week 2. It is the deicide for the Oni Warriors, and they have pulled this game back from the brink.
But the rest of the Solar Scarabs follow up, down go the Titans, and Labra's got the first. What a 1-2 punch from the Bolts.
The damage comes from the Leviathans until Zapman puts them down with the snipe.
Defend their Titan, and the Tartarus Titan send us on to a game 3.
The Jade Dragons have come to play. 5 kills in 7 minutes.
Hello, SMITE fans, and welcome. Week number 4, day number 2, set number 1 of the SMITE Pro League. My name is Jade Tucker, with me, Gore Miser, and here to thank our good friends at Alienware for powering Season 8 of the SPL. You can go to smitegame.com/Alienware and use code SMITEAW to get all kinds of discounts and get all the know-hows on all of the cool things that Alienware provides, not just to our pros, but here in the studio, which is where all of our stuff is also going to be played. Those pro players are going to be playing on those Aurora Ryzen 10 desktops, the 25-inch, 240Hz gaming monitors, and you can get yourselves those too. Again, at smitegame.com/Alienware. Code SMITEAW. Thank you so much for Alienware for sponsoring Season 8 of the SPL. Make sure to follow them on their social media at Alienware on Twitter and Instagram. Joining me, Gore Miser, here for set number 1 of the day here in studio. Both of these are going to be taking place in studio today. You're not going to want to miss any of the action. We got the Jade Dragons up in our first match against the Tartarus Titans. You got to see a little bit of a preview right before of a couple of players who are here in the studio, but it's not the only one in studio. We got the Olympus Bolts and the Solar Scarabs taking place immediately after, and then if you didn't get enough LAN action or in-studio action, tomorrow we've also got another in-studio with the Leviathans and the Titans, then the Oni Warriors and the Valhalla Valkyries. That's the 4 sets for the weekend. Let's look at the standings to see where everybody has kind of fallen in line with everything so far. The Atlantis Leviathans up 5-0, undefeated so far. Camelot Kings with their win yesterday puts them up at 2nd seed at 4-2 for their record. And everybody, especially with this next set, the Tartarus Titans and Jade Dragons, who are tied here at these 3-3 for their wins, want to see who can come out on top today.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what happens because, you know, you see the Dragons, they have one more game played right now than the Titans. The Titans' future right now is the Dragons, then they have to play the Leviathans, then they have to play the Bolts next week, right? So it's not really an easy 3 to go up against. But the good news is that they beat 2 of these 3 very recently. Most of these recent games have gone their way. And so I'm interested to see how they're going to bounce back from it. I think that they had a rough set up against the Kings the other week, and so things are definitely shaping up for them. But this is definitely going to be more of a test.
Yeah, very highly contested top 5 between these teams. But talking a little bit specifically about these two teams jumping in here, let's talk a little bit about the Tartarus Titans and their Hunter Cyclonespin. Kind of diving in here. We've been talking a lot about the jungle because of all the jungle changes, but we've seen some swap-ups in the Hunter role, namely the Uller kind of being the big one here. But even Cyclonespin's been throwing Set out there because, well, when you buff jungle items, just take jungler, put him in the dual lane with Set, and we get to see some fun times happen.
Yeah, it's been fun to watch. It's definitely been a different flavor coming out of that dual lane, which actually makes this dual lane, and specifically the 2 Hunters, as a matchup more interesting because the fact that we've seen Panda Cat also willing to lean into, admittedly, he goes into more just off-meta Hunters. Cyclonespin can play damn near anything he wants to in the game. It's part of the reason he was such a good solo laner back in the day. And so it's going to be interesting to see if that's still the route they go. If Set, you know, it becomes a big deal, he can be such a good late-game hyper carry, but we've also seen things like the Izanami do really well. Even though Hu Yi hasn't been winning a whole lot of games, I feel like that's something I wouldn't be surprised if we see today. And of course, it's the duo synergy that comes online early on that they've been able to set up together that has made a lot. But the biggest thing that I think is the most interesting to me is the fact that when you look at it, it's not like, oh, this is the guaranteed Hunter we're going to see, or this is the most likely Hunter we're going to see. You get such a wide variety out of this duo lane that I think it's going to complicate the picks and bans for the Dragons.
It's, also kind of flipping that over with the Jade Dragons, similar to Panda Cats, as you mentioned. So many different Hunters that can be picked up there. So it's going to be interesting to see exactly where these 2 Hunters actually end up getting for their positions because, you know, Uller's still very highly contested. That has been one thing that's had to be banned away quite often from teams. He's been pretty much #1 pick or ban just about anybody, pretty much any team is wanting to make sure to ban him away. Let's talk a little bit with the Hunter of the Tartarus Titans. We got Dulcin standing by to talk with Cyclone.
That's right, Cyclonespin is here with me. Cyclone, first off, thanks for taking the time. Look, we're really getting down to the stretch here. You guys got 3 games left in your phase. We've talked about how important the matchups are. Getting those top 2, you get to pick the groups for the other teams. Contextualize it for me as a pro, as a guy on one of these teams. How important do you guys feel it is to be able to pick the groups for the other teams?
It's kind of important. But
Sure.
At the end of the day, you just get into your group and you still have to win regardless. So
Sure.
it doesn't matter too much.
You gotta beat anyone anyway, or everyone anyway, potentially. So you like to pick the groups, but maybe not the most important. Your last 3 sets here are against some really good teams. You got the Dragons today, Leviathans, Bolts still to go. Do you guys feel any extra pressure going down the stretch here? Or are you taking it one set at a time?
Just one set at a time.
Sure. We saw a little bit of Charybdis yesterday, actually, with Zapman. What's your take? I'm not going to ask you to reveal if we're going to see it or not. Do you think she is viable, though, in certain situations?
She's definitely viable in certain situations, just not many. So.
Not many. If you want to be decoy, Zapman was basically decoy
Yeah.
yesterday, so maybe if you want to be decoy, I'll let you get back, get prepared, excited for this set against the Dragons, and best of luck.
Well, maybe we will get to see a little bit of the Charybdis, or maybe not. Maybe we'll see something else come out. You never know with these hunters. You never know between Cyclonespin. You never know against Panda Cat either on the opposite side of the table here for the Jade Dragons. He's also had quite a wide god pool, though, as you did very specifically mention. It's pretty much just hunters coming out of him, but I believe he's played some of the most hunters out of all of them, and it's one of the 2 groups. You know, when you get to a team like, let's say the Kings, for example, Netroid, he's got 3 hunters he's played the majority of for the last little bit. Panda Cat's kind of been all over the place.
Yeah, it's, again, very exciting to watch. We didn't get to see it. The last time we watched Panda Cat play and the Dragons play, there wasn't as much of an impact from the duo lane, and that was very surprising. I think a lot of people I saw online, not only I think chat saying that, but in Reddit threads, people just kind of pointing out that it didn't hit as hard as they were used to. And I feel like that is a non-typical game for Panda Cat. He's almost always having a huge performance, so I'm expecting a lot more today than what we've gotten to see out of them. This is also a really big matchup for them. Also worth mentioning, just going on that same thread that you had put up, which is the kind of god variety, the only team that has more gods played. The Titans have 76. The only team that has more is the Dragons, and they're one of the others. Scarabs are also up there, oddly enough, as it comes to variety of gods that are getting played. But I think that makes things a lot more interesting for this draft phase, because both of these teams are so, willing to play the meta. If Ullr's available, Panda Cat's not going to shy away from it, but at the same time, they're more than happy to pick up things that are a little weird, a little out there. Amuz and Cobb was one of their lock-ins the last time we saw them. The Hu Yi, again, despite success, has been getting locked in. There's a lot, I think, that is on the table for both of these teams to be able to play, and that makes things a lot more interesting getting ready for it.
Kind of looking back on those replays, it kind of reminded me, this has been the phase of quadra kills, man. So many quadras have been popped up. I think 2 specifically have come from Panda Cat, actually. He had one on Ullr a couple sets back, and then he had the one on the Ho Yi in the last set against the Kings, so maybe we'll see another one. Maybe we can finally see. We haven't had a Penta at all this year, have we?
Nope.
No.
Last Penta was, I don't remember the exact date, but it was Cherio, Erlong Shen for SSG, Phase 2 last year, and I can't remember against who.
Very late in the year, if I remember. So
yes,
maybe
it was definitely October-ish.
We want to see it, man. I know everybody's excited when you get to see a Penta. We've seen some as far as the SCC is concerned, but we haven't seen one in the SPL in quite some time. But both these hunters very capable of doing so. And as you can see, we got all the players standing by here in the studio, a couple of them standing up out of their chair. I've noticed that there's been a trend from some players who do like to stand out of the chair during these picks and bans, maybe kind of just get themselves kind of mentally set up for it and kind of just dial themselves in, really.
And I honestly think there's some merits to it, depending on who's doing a lot of the piloting or being part of this conversation, right? Also, stretching your legs feels good. I'm never going to doubt it. I like standing up. I've been very, very upset that I hurt my foot and haven't been able to do it a lot more lately. But it's going to be interesting to watch them, especially because the Titans, this is where things get a little more... I don't even know what the word is. Problematic isn't right. We'll figure it out. Things have changed. The first time these teams played, Phase 1, they played each other once, Dragons 2-0. Phase 2, the first time they play each other, Dragons 2-0. And, of course, at the Phase 1 playoffs, it goes all 5 games between these two teams. But the Dragons end up taking game number 5, and they won the first 3 sets they played against this team. Since then, they've done nothing but lose to the Titans. They lost 2-0 in Phase 2 Week 8, and then they lost 3-1 during the playoffs. The Titans, very similarly, most of the most recent matches against the teams they're about to play were all victories of some sort. And so it makes things a little more, I want to say pressured. It feels weird that the Dragons, in my mind, in power rankings are above the Titans. But the Titans are actually, in my mind, also the favored matchup. It's a very, very, very conflicted mentality to have going into this. But I'm excited to see how they're going to handle it. I think we talked a lot about the carry matchup, but I also think that looking at the junglers is going to be very important. First Bloods have been piloting a lot, and the Dragons' slow starts have been not as good for them in the long term of a game versus when they get things firing off, not necessarily immediately, but a lot sooner. I also think there's not as much overlap. Like Sam's God play style and Layer's play style don't match up entirely. Both of them will look for kills. Both of them have good setup. But I feel like there's a different God pool at the forefront of my mind for Sam than for Layers. And that's going to make things interesting in all sorts of aspects around this map.
Yeah, kind of immediately coming to mind for picks like Layers, like the Nemesis, the Kamazots, and things like that, more towards Layers. And you go over to the opposite side for Sam, it's Susano, Hunbass, considering that was the most banned God against that team. And with all due respect, that is one of Sam's go-to kind of heavy hitters back when he was on SK and was able to get a nice little Worlds run with that. So no surprise to see that one's been banned away from them. That jungle matchup is going to be very volatile between them, and I think even coming here into the mid lane matchup, because we've been seeing Tiamat Raijin pretty much exclusively in mid. Now, actually, I won't even say that because we've been seeing a little bit less of both of them, whether they be banned or just one kind of falls to the wayside here. But Tiamat and Raijin and Hell, pretty much the only gods that Paul has needed to play in the last, 4 weeks of play. That's really all he's needed to go to. We'll see if maybe the Jade Dragons can kind of take him away, put him on something a little bit less comfortable. But notably, we have been actually seeing a lot less Hell in picks and bans. She kind of has just... it feels like she's just kind of fallen off the wayside here.
That's the weird thing. Here in Phase 3, there's been, Hell is tied with Odin for the most banned god against the Titans. But like you said, just in terms of playing it, that hasn't been really on their list of gods to go to. I mean, even looking at it, they played her twice so far this phase. And so it's not necessarily oh man, that's so low, but they're not readily jumping on it every single chance they get. Khepri, Rom, Raijin, Erlong Shen have been very, very popular picks. Set as well, we had kind of talked about that, not for Layers, but for Cyclonespin, has been a popular pick for the Titans. And so it makes things, again, just so tumultuous when it comes to picks and bans, especially when you look at where Artio stands right now in the meta and the way that things have been going. I'm excited to see what the Titans do, especially since they have first pick.
Well, wait no more. Let's jump right into picks and bans for game number 1 between the Tartarus Titans and the Jade Dragons. Here, live in studio, a lot of analysis that we've thrown out between the Hunters, between the jungle, between the mid. Haven't talked very much about the solo lane here. FineOK has been playing a little bit more of a different strategy compared to some of the other solo laners. The Cthulhu has been something pretty much almost exclusively in his wheelhouse. We've been seeing a little bit more Nike come from him as well, and there is some of that flex potential with the Nike, sometimes with Sam out of jungle as of more recent. Because of changes to the jungle and the items in it, we have been seeing that Nike more often going towards that solo lane. And Nike, I'm just going to say it out here, surprisingly, Nike has had a very successful run at pretty much all levels of competitive play.
Yeah, Nike, I think she's found her home, right? And it's just the massive slows that she's able to provide in the middle of a team fight, as well as the fact that she's tanky. Not necessarily the, easiest early game. You aren't, necessarily suffering, but you're also not that happy about it, so you're kind of juggling a lot of those feelings. But at the end of the day, you hit level 5, all of a sudden your survivability doubles, and then the more items you get online, by the time you're level 10, level 11, you're able to start rotating a little bit out of that lane and making more of an impact. And so I wouldn't be surprised. This is also going to be a very fun solo lane matchup just in general. Benji and FineOK are some of the best solo laners to have ever played Smite, period. And so getting to watch them go up against each other is very fun.
No pun intended, but two Titans of the solo lane going head-to-head here.
Yeah.
One specifically being an actual Tartarus Titan. But
A
first
bit of a pun
bans that
intended.
come out a little bit minor.
Only 5% of that pun was
a
intended.
We'll call it a half pun. We'll call it half pun intended.
Well, no, it was a full pun, but half intended.
Half intended, yeah. Uller and Yamoja, the first gods banned away by the Tartarus Titans. Jade Dragons go for a couple more supports of their own in the Sylvanas and the Khepri. Both of those have been rising a lot. The Khepri taking a little bit or has been around a little bit longer in these bans. I'd say over towards the Phase 2 playoffs, and when we really started to see him jump in, maybe even week 8 of Phase 2. Khepri started kind of poking his head out here, especially for Aurora. He's really loved going towards his pick. And towards even been a first pick for some of these teams. Sylvanas a bit of that new guard, and even Geb, I'm surprised, hasn't had a ban thrown his way just yet. PBM has had this god banned against him multiple times and has had very strong success. I think, what was it, week number 2, he had 100% win rate or something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, Geb has really been rising up here in the ranks and has been performing very well. We're still waiting for that third ban from the Titans. It will be Ardio. No surprise, she will continue to be 100% pick ban.
This is where, probably, for a
think
little
so.
while. I wouldn't imagine that she shies away from that anytime soon. Maybe, winner, was it this bonus or is it sometime in the future she's getting nerfed? I think at
Actually,
some
it's
point,
this bonus right
it was
now.
this
that
bonus that
she
she
had
just
a
got nerfed, right?
1 second cooldown increase on her first ability in both stances.
Okay, and that's
Not
not enough
lot.
to really take her down from the top. Let's be honest about that.
Yeah.
So, I expect she maybe shies a little bit away. This is actually what I'm most curious about. Odin, again, you can see it down there, but bans against the Titans, percentage-wise, he is up there. Again, same number of games, or at least so far, same number of bans total as Hell. And so it's going to be interesting if the Titans go for that, since it's such a coveted pick for them, but Geb's still available. You had highlighted that. With all 3 of these supports, the Terra, the Khepri, the Sylvanas, and then factor in the Emoja on the other side getting banned away, I think Geb really kind of rises in terms of his stock and maybe put some pressure onto what the, I would think what the Titans were trying to pick.
Odin will get locked in. I'm thinking not just the Geb, but Tiamat and Raijin both open for mid laners. Pretty much all of the hunters aside, and obviously from Ullr, banned out here, the only one, but we've been seeing a lot of Hachiman, Ho Yi have kind of been rising amongst the ranks of the hunters. Hachiman specifically, we've been seeing, I'm not going to say oddly enough, but he seems to be one of those gods that people are kind of quote-unquote counter-picking up against Ullrs more often than not. We've been seeing a lot of Hachiman into Ullr, but because the Odin gets locked in by the Titans, gives that flexibility over between the solo and the support. Both Aurora and Benji do like to play this. It does leave the Geb open for the Jade Dragons, and of those top mid laners that they see available, they do want to grab the Raijin and lock that in for hurry win.
And the Odin also opens up this conversation. You had mentioned counters to Ullr, and my mind immediately went to Cupid, who we've only really seen banned a lot versus the Ullr, as opposed to getting locked in. But realistically, Odin controls what kind of gods you're going to see. Raijin makes sense because he's got a good Thunder Crash to get out of the cage. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw something like an Izanami or the Hu Yi. It's anything that has a leap or something that acts a lot like it to get out of those walls and makes things interesting, not just for Panda Cat, but also probably in the jungle, something with a leap that's going to be able to help disengage, as opposed to some of the others that we've seen lately. And, Hunbats is still on the table. That's always something that I don't mind seeing Sam go to. But, your Susanos, all of a sudden, those are captured a lot easier. If you go for Hachiman, since you were talking about him, he's captured a lot easier. And so that puts a lot of precedent on Phantom needing to be bought. But it also showcases, I think, where the Dragons have a lot of flexibility to get some of these other gods and help save themselves.
Hoyi would always just be a fun one, not just because you can get out of the cage, but it's one of those, Odin. It kind of throws me back to the olden days of Odin. You get an Odin.
Odin days?
You drop that.
I'm sorry.
You drop that giant cage down, and then you always want your mid laner to have some big AoE ultimate to kind of couple along with it. You get things like, say, the Kraken from Poseidon.
And the Zeus, whatever it's called.
Yeah, Zeus ultimate. We haven't seen Zeus in so long.
I've actually forgotten.
I have forgotten the name of his ultimate.
His 3 is Detonate. His 1 is Chain Lightning.
Then you have the Aegis Shield for his 2.
Oh, is that really what that's called?
I believe it's called the
I
Aegis
was just gonna
Shield.
call it the shield.
But
it is the Aegis Shield. Did you know his shield has Medusa's head on it?
It does. That's right.
And it's so if people saw it, they look away because they don't want to get turned to stone.
Nike locked in here for the Jade Dragons to kind of round this one out. But Ho Yi is one of those guys. Getting back onto the track of, you see an Odin lock in with the cage, similar to mages. Ho Yi kind of fits that similar bill. Same to a Cupid. He drops down the cage, and you drop a big circle right on top. The Suns, Fields of Love. Is it really just... I'm going to guess it's like Thunderstorm or something like that.
Lightning Storm.
Lightning Storm. Okay.
Hey, turns out that
very similar.
Smite, at least old Smite abilities, you'll never guess it. They were named for what they did. Chain Lightning, you'll never guess. It chains lightning. Lightning Storm, it's a lightning storm.
I kind of miss the simpler days back then. Even Agni, it's like Path of Flame whenever he dashes, very back to the old simpler days of it. And then you have things like Nike and even Sylvanas, where their ultimate is something, and then
Sentinel
it adds
of Zeus.
another god's name in there. So you're like, Sentinel of Zeus. Wait, hold on a sec. This is Nike, not Zeus. Bands coming through. Fafnir, Kuzenbo on the side of the Jade Dragons, and some jungle bands out of the Tartarus Titans, the Hunbats and the Susano, both power picks here for Sanford Soccer, making sure to keep those two out of his hands. Jade Dragons still need their jungler, and I would not be surprised to see, or I'm actually very curious to see where Sanford Soccer does go with these two gods taken away. It will be a Tsukuyomi. I thought maybe they would have waited on his until the last pick, but they are going to give Panda Cat the potential counter pick option.
in a way, he can get out of the cage. Not like
That's-
consistently
that
and
is
on a
true.
short cooldown.
That is true.
But one really good ult can get you out of the cage. It's also like, I mean, Tsukiyomi, and we watched the game earlier for the SEC where like he just goes nuts. And that's the good thing. As Tsukiyomi gets ahead, Tsukiyomi just rolls over his opponents. He's really, really good in the right hands. I think we've seen him a lot in the right hands. The thing that's interesting, and I can't believe I'm letting these words come out of my mouth because it's not the meta right now, but I'm
Okay.
going to say it anyway.
All right.
We have seen FineOK play this Nike in the jungle. And we have seen Tsukiyomi solo in the past. Now, do I think that's what's going to happen? Probably not. But it'd be kind of cool, and it does give him some flexibility.
Charybdis being hovered. We did see her played yesterday, though. I think the phrase that you used, and I think it was the correct phrase, was she was the lightning rod of the team.
Yeah.
Pretty much everybody.
Hey, I'm
wanted
going to die, but I'm going to distract the hell out of him for 10 seconds.
Oh, yeah. It was what, like 10, 12 seconds he lived. But we will not see a Charybdis. Instead, we will see a Rom go the way of Cyclonespin for the Titans. One more pick to their name. They do need what would assumedly be probably their support, but could still be a solo laner depending on what they lock in here. With Odin hovered and Aurora having played this in the past, does give some of that flexible opportunity towards them. So we'll see what it is. Kabrakan popped in here. I'm gonna be honest. I still don't know. I want to say that I agree with you and say that this is Aurora's Kabrakan, but man, I really don't know now.
Nah, I think he's played it the most, and that's really like that's the only thing that gives it the edge to me, right? And it's just because he's played it.
That's fair, that's
when
fair.
they lock it in, he tends to be the one who wants to pick it up. Either way, it's an aggressive duo lane. Rom is going to be a really fun one to watch. I mean, look, the top 4 of this team, Kabrakan you can almost completely ignore. It's just so Titans. It just feels so right for them. The Odin, the Erlong, the Soul, and the Rom all fit. Like, Soul might be the weakest of those, and it's Paul, so of course it's not going to be that weak, right? So it's going to be a really fun matchup to watch just from the Titans because this draft feels like it plays into their hand and their style pretty well. And now that I see this, that's got to be set for
ADC.
Panda Cat, right?
Yeah, that's got to be Panda.
Unless Panda's playing the Tsukiyomi ADC, which I've only seen BennyQ do, I think.
That was a long time ago, I think.
Yeah.
No, and BennyQ almost.
That's what I'm saying. Nobody does it.
Yeah, I mean, BennyQ mostly plays mid at this point, but set here for ADC, taking maybe a page here out of Cyclonespin's book. Normally, he's the one that we've been seeing in these last couple of weeks and phases of play in the SPL where the set has gone to ADC. But now Panda Cat wants to see if he can take his hands on this assassin. And with this double assassin here, now that Jade Dragons have picked up, now we got to see, I think, this exact same assassin combo in the SCC earlier today, but it was mid and jungle, not jungle and potentially ADC. I'm going to only assume because Raijin is locked in here for the mid. How do you like this Set Tsukiyomi combo running out of the dual lane?
It's just, look, both of them can become hyper carry. Set can carry a lot of weight on his back if he gets ahead. Tsukiyomi can do something very similar. A lot of control that comes from them, plus you've got double the dives. You know, Soul can survive through a lot. Erlong Rom can survive through a lot. But now you've got 2 assassins to chase them down, but you still get the merits of having a big mage carry in the Raijin. So you have all of the benefits. The biggest thing you're lacking is the range.
Game 1 here in the studio, Titans and Dragons. Who's going to take game number 1? Let's take it over to Dulcin and Mifflin to bring the action.
It's Saturday afternoon, and the Tartarus Titans and the Jade Dragons will be brawling it out here live in studio. Dulcin and Mifflin will be calling the action for you. Doug, of course, working the camera for us. And Miff, we're used to seeing Cyclonespin, maybe. Oh, it's Billy. I was wrong. It's Billy. It's basically observing for us here this game. We got to give him his due credit, and that's on me for just assuming it would be Doug. It's Billy working the spectator for us here today. And Miff, I want to start off this game talking about this duo lane here a little bit. Talk to Cyclonespin about Charybdis before the game, but you know, Set is always in the back of my mind when it comes to Cyclonespin. He's the type to play sort of unique style pick here in the duo lane, but it's actually going to be Panda Cat on the set, and Set takes a little chunk of damage here at the start, and it's already level 2.
Good lord.
Reached by the Tartarus Titans. Blink forward from Aurora.
Is he done?
Talk about aggression. The Tartarus Titans, 50 seconds into game 1, have gotten first blood.
Yeah, so do I analyze that fight? Do I analyze the set, man? I'm not sure. Tartarus Titans certainly off to a roaring start this time around, and I think that is
roaring start?
a roaring
start.
I had no idea what you're doing. Okay, that is one of the glaring weaknesses of Set. His clear at level 1's clearly outshined up against a Rom, and immediately is punished for it, losing out on the majority of his HP bar and his support. But give Panda Cat a couple of levels, he'd be able to leverage that damage output on his own given some time. But the conversation around Set as ADC in years of past was, okay, this is really good if you don't know the matchup against it. It seems like most of these guys are starting to learn that matchup. Feels like if anyone should know the matchup, it's going to be Cyclonespin. So I'm excited to see how Panda Cat's able to really perform here.
Oh, dream start then for the Tartarus Titans, and now tough for the Jade Dragons, at least over there in the duo lane. Aurora without Blink for 75 or so seconds maybe mitigates some of that aggression, but how about this? Paul on the back harpies here. Sanford Soccer's in, got the stun. He got Aegis out of Paul here as well, and so Paul can return a little bit of damage. As Sam's already rotated through his whole kit, can Paul get the return kill at least one more auto? And yes, he can. Hurrywin's got to get this one, and he at least returns it on out. And so some trades going the way of the Jade Dragons and the Tartarus Titans, but it's Blink through for Layers. It's a pin in from Layers, and the Thunder Crash still on cooldown. That means the Titans get another.
Yeah, 4 kills in 2 minutes on this one. That's traded lives, man. Once Hurrywin uses the Thunder Crash, yeah, that's free for Layers every single day of the week. I'm not even sure he really needed to utilize that Blink there. Maybe worried about his damage output, considering Layers did not elect to go for the Mannequin Scepter this time around, and that did look like a steal attempt to me, and maybe it is successful. Nobody's picking it up.
We'll see if Panda Cat cycles back for it, but right back underneath their tower to farm up that wave. So it looks like Aurora actually successful on his way in and taking that one away, unless I'm immediately going to get proven wrong.
Oh, you're so wrong.
Which I am. Yeah, Panda Cat just went back, wanted to get full XP for the wave, and ends up going back. So a nice try from Aurora, but not to be. Aurora on Cabrakan, what a unique look here for the Tartarus Titans. It's something normally, Final K maybe plays it out of solo lane, and who am I kidding? I'm not going to get the chance to bring up anything because these teams want to fight, and it's Benji being dove on by Sanford Soccer, and easy enough for the Jade Dragons to get some pressure on right.
Yeah, the Jade Dragons clearly do need something to get rolling for them on the map, and solo lane's been the one constant here so far for them, so Sanford Soccer making that rotation is going to put Final K in a very good position to start rotating out and helping out inside of these other lanes, and when I say these other lanes, Hurrywin currently struggling, 1 level down, does not have that ultimate available. Meanwhile, on the other end, maybe Panda Cat benefiting slightly from losing out on PBM earlier on, doesn't have to split nearly as much farm, ticks over to 5 first, as does Mike. That's interesting. The Tartarus Titans losing out a little bit.
What do we think here? I mean, Benevolence for a while, their myth was in a unique spot.
It was good.
We were seeing 10 of them a game.
That was pretty good.
It was all right, to say the absolute least. We've seen maybe a little bit more variety, it feels like, out of support starter items here recently. Sentinels has maybe been the most often picked up. I think we saw War Flag yesterday. And right on cue, I'm going to bring up something right as the teams are fighting, and Aurora is down to half HP, but that is a tanky Cabrakan already. Sovereignty is there, and that'll allow Aurora to walk away.
I'm not sure. I think Hurrywin had to use Tycho Drum to find that taunt. Could have set up for the squad. I mean, there's 4 members of the Dragons on the left-hand side, but instead, Aurora allowed to re-engage.
It's purple buff invade, and a great wall from Aurora keeps Panda Cat right where he is. Layers has found his way into the back, but Panda Cat will make his way under the tower. One last shot from Cyclonespin, and 1 was good, 2 and 3 were not, and so Panda Cat will survive. But the pressure mounting on the left side of the map for the Tartarus Titans against the Jade Dragons. This set, despite admittedly him and PBM having a 1-level lead just a moment ago, the Titans are not going to allow this lane to rest on their laurels.
No, and if the Titans are able to maintain this pressure on the left-hand side of the map, just looking at their composition, I'm talking Erlang Shen, any Hunter, plus a Soul, you're shredding objectives.
Yep.
They're just absolutely dominating them. Once this Greater Scorpion goes down, Gold Fury is going to be a major threat that the Tartarus Titans are able to generate on this left-hand side. And the Jade Dragons, they've got decent early-game fight potential thanks to Double Assassin, but as far as objectives go, they can't generate nearly as much threat.
Hey, well, how does this team fight start to look for you, Myth, the Jade Dragons, as this game goes on? Say you're able to weather this storm. I mean, the game is 500 gold in the lead for the Titans, so First Blood really making the difference right now. And Panda Cat lurking. I've wanted to see this all year long since the Draugr pit got added in. A little Draugr skirmishing. Maybe Panda Cat able to make something happen with the Assassin set. That is the mobility used by Cyclonespin. Oh, but Paul and Aurora, they're both here. Panda Cat thought he had an advantage, but it's really anything but. The Titans show up in force all at once. Then no chance for Panda Cat to finish off the fight, but now Sanford Soccer on the re-engage. Massive Cataclysm in a perfect piercing moonlight from Sanford Soccer. But Cyclonespin has bought himself some time, and he will live. Nothing going right for the Jade Dragons. Everything going wrong. And the Tartarus Titans find 2.
I don't know how the Titans knew that Panda Cat was looking for that play, but they are there in numbers. And then the mechanical prowess that Cyclonespin just put on full display rolls away, gets landed inside the Caltrop, says, I'm not allowed to walk, I just die. Immediately heads up into the air and hits every single shot. The Tartarus Titans looking incredibly strong right now.
This is absurd. We have more than a kill a minute right now, and it might increase around this purple buff, but Panda Cat looks no further to scrap here on the left side of the map. Paul has gotten a couple great rotations in. He's now at 2-1-1, about a half-level lead over Hurrywind. And this is like a master class of communication and counter rotations, it feels like, Myth, doesn't it, from the Tartarus Titans, where now twice, specifically on the left, the Jade Dragons have initiated something. And the Titans have been there right on time to answer back and keep their team alive. So this level of communication is awesome from the Tartarus Titans, and it's keeping the Jade Dragons guessing.
And the Jade Dragons aren't doing poorly in their own right. I mean, that was a double Cataclysm from PBM into a double knock-up. Literally land every single one of your abilities. You just don't have enough damage output on the side of the Jade Dragons. Unfortunate for them, chasing the bag and getting caught out for it.
PBM has Blink, has Cataclysm. Cyclonespin does not have beads. There's the Blink. Oh, no. The Cyclonespin has bought some time, gets a lot of damage in onto Panda Cat. This time, Cyclonespin will not get away. And it is executed well by the Jade Dragons. Aurora's rotating in, but he is alone. Does not have Blink, and that means Panda Cat will get out of this one alive. And so finally, Myth, a moment to breathe for the Jade Dragons over here on left. Panda Cat has evened up the levels. They needed that one to go right, I think. To keep Cyclonespin, to keep this left side of the map in a state of comfort.
Yeah, Cyclonespin trying a little bit too hard to land all of his shots there. Shoots them out incredibly quick and loses a lot of that survivability. Could have just sat in the air and allowed Aurora maybe 2 more seconds to find that rotation. Maybe able to find a return kill, if not save his ADC's life. But that was a good look at what the Jade Dragons are trying to do with this dual lane. Cataclysm and a knock-up and a skewer combo. You're probably dead. There's just so much damage at this point.
So Panda Cat now into that charged Morning Star tree. We'll see where that ends up going. Could be a Transcendence. Plenty of options still in that lane. We've seen later Transcendences in builds a couple times here as of late, but I'll withhold speculation until Panda Cat is able to answer that question now for us. And so we've slowed things down a little bit, and I think eyes then have to shift towards solo lane in the jungle here a little bit, Myth, because Layers has been on a tear so far, 1-0-1, so 2 out of 5 kills he's been a part of, but it feels like this Erlang Shen has been over on left a decent bit. Sanford Soccer's been able to farm up well. He's got a 1-level lead over Layers in the jungle and a 2-level lead for FinoK over here on the right side of the map. So while the left side feels fine and has been getting a lot of pressure for the Titans, this right side of the map definitely tilting for the Jade Dragons.
Yeah, they've been able to quietly amass themselves a pretty nice lead throughout this portion of the match, and it's been off the back of repeated blue buff invades from FinoK and Sanford Soccer. Benji just fighting for his life, trying to maintain that buff. And I think this slower start for Layers might be this new build that he's elected to go immediately into the Bumbas instead of Mannequins, Crusher. Afterward, generally it's Mannequins, Stone Cutting Sword, or something along those lines. As PBM, well, he wants to change up the narrative on the left-hand side, looking for a little bit of a red buff invade, but completely on his own, says can't do it, walks away. Keep your eyes on Layers, though, and I think this plays into what we were talking about a little bit earlier. The Tartarus Titans going for objective Shred with Bumba's Spear on an Erlang Shen, and essentially a double Hunter composition between Soul and this Rom. Fire Giant, Gold Fury, Pyromancer. I don't think they're long for this world.
Yeah, there is a Mannequins. It's just on Paul and not on Layers. So some trading effectiveness for Paul that has definitely got him out to a good start here in this game at 2-1-1. And we've seen some mid laners like this style of build that Paul is going for. You get some early lifesteal, some early power online, and then immediately into something a little bit more defensive. Maybe feeling like, Myth, that the immediate threat is going to be from the assassin, the Tsukiyomi, and the assassin that is the set. And FinoK jumping on you. Maybe the breastplate makes some sense.
Yeah, I mean, that's the complete game plan of the Jade Dragons in a 5-on-5 engagement is all in. You're not looking for an elongated fight. You're not looking to dance around these objectives. It's piercing Moonlight. Panda Cat leaps in. FinoK is on top of you with 2 HP bars, and then you've just got Paul trying to fend for himself. Luckily, as you highlight, has some sustain thanks to the Bancrofts and some defense thanks to the Valor, rather. But I think more so, Disapparate, going to be a huge tool going forward for the Tartarus Titans. They talked about on the desk what Cardi B is able to do, right? Well, Soul's kind of the originator of that. I think so. I like it. You don't love that?
I might be a holdout. I might be a holdout on that one. We'll see how I feel a little bit later on. The Gold Fury, though, right now being worked on by the Tartarus Titans. Cataclysm is big from Mike, but the delay on the engage is great there. Hurrywind held on to the Tycho drums. There's some low health bars on the Tartarus Titans right now, and Mike maybe thinks he can capitalize on it. Not to be, though. Tartarus Titans able to take down the Gold Fury cleanly. And Mike is just going to be a little bit annoying here as on back to base go a couple members of the Tartarus Titans. And so we saw some decent magical damage there, Miff, roll its way through the Tartarus Titans. I mean, Sovereignty for Aurora plus Gauntlet of Thebes. There's going to be a lot of physical aura defense spread out for the Titans. Maybe that makes Hurrywind's damage much more important for the Dragons.
And his damage was crazy there. I mean, Raiju tore through the entirety of the Tartarus Titans, which is why I'm so surprised to see him yet again hesitant on using those Taiko drums. I don't think he's used that ability yet this game, 12 minutes in.
Haven't seen it.
I'm not sure what he's saving it for. That felt like a pretty good opportunity, but instead, just waiting for it. Maybe the Cataclysm, maybe he's waiting for the full engage of the Piercing Moonlight. Doesn't like his odds in what was essentially a 3 versus 4 on this left-hand side, but I got to think that was a missed opportunity. That said, despite all these things going the way of the Tartarus Titans throughout the entirety of this match, Gold Furies, a couple of duo lane fights, it still is a dead even match as far as gold and experience are concerned.
It is. We've heaped praise on the Titans and hyped up the plays that have gotten them a little bit in the lead here. It's important also to show some love to the Dragons who have stabilized here. I mean, the early game was a whirlwind. You're getting some answers back, but it really felt like nothing was going right. You're only 2 kills behind, a little bit of gold behind. Panda Cat has a level lead over in the duo lane, despite how that lane started out. PBM, 1 level up over Aurora. Hell, 2,000. I don't even know where that came from. In the last 30 seconds, 2,000 XP trickles its way to the Jade Dragons. So this is a team that, despite being behind a little bit earlier on, has felt okay over the last couple minutes. Now's the time to engage, though, says Panda Cat. The healing helping out on the initial engage. Nice double stun from Aurora in the wall on the wrong side of this fight. Aurora's going to get taken down by Panda Cat, but as Panda Cat lost too much HP, there's a rotation coming from the mid lane from Paul. Cyclonespin, can he hit him from downtown? 1 out of 3 is good. But over on the right, Hurrywind, he's caught out here, and that's going to be a kill gifted back to the Titans.
Yeah, Paul catches Hurrywind on the rotation in, trying to help out the rest of his team.
That's tough.
The Jade Dragons, despite being able to find that pick on Aurora, I would argue, come out behind on that one. Trading mid laner for support never feels good. And now, what is PBM to do but defend his tier 1 tower in mid? I mean, it's good farm split, I suppose. PBM getting a little bit of solo, but this tower might just go down anyway.
Layers is going to be here, provide some auto attacks onto the tower. How much does he want to spend, though? Because Panda Cat is here. Sanford Soccer is also here. Slow connects onto Layers, but
damage.
Looks like Layers and Paul will waltz on away. Yeah, there's a lot of damage coming from Panda Cat. Jotuns did end up being followed up by Transcendence there, and then into something else in that Mace Tree. And so Panda Cat's already doing damage. By the time that Transcendence is stacked up, it's going to feel a whole lot beefier from this set. And so Panda Cat sticking with some of the good ability-based items in the current meta.
Yeah, but I think the Jade Dragons are looking for a little bit of a faster pace than what they've gotten so far. When you're running double assassin, transitioning into these objective-based team fights doesn't feel great. You don't have a great ability to kite out around these Owning Furies or even try and confirm these Fire Giants, whereas that's all the Tartarus Titans have. Once this does evolve into you don't go back to your lanes, instead it's just roaming the map trying to find these objectives. We already highlighted the damage output Layers, Paul, and Cyclone have. Add Gungnir's Might attack speed stim to all of that is only going to make it that much harder. And the Jade Dragons are pretty one note in how they initiate these fights. It's going to be an all-in off the back of a blink-in Cataclysm from PBM, drop an Ankh right afterward and hope that the rest of your team has the damage output to finish off these engagements. So I think the Tartarus Titans, all they really need to do, survive the initial, re-engage, they're going to be looking just fine.
And speaking of damage on the back end of a fight, Paul just finishes up a Rod of Tahuti. So you feel like I guess the argument, Miff, the conversation is always, well, you get BOV, you get Breastplate of Valor, that maybe slows down your damage a little bit but keeps you safer. How do you then get your power back on track? Getting a massive power spike in the Rod of Tahuti will certainly help this soul.
It will, and some additional penetration, which is much needed at this point in the game. I am curious to see where Paul goes with this next item. He's got the whole field available to him. Could go down that Typhon's path if he wants to utilize a little bit more lifesteal and get some penetration, or could even go towards those rings. I mean, Demonic Grip still an incredibly strong item, as is Telkines, as is Hecate. So, Paul has a little bit of time to work with now as he's bought that with some defense inside of the build. But on the other end, Hurrywind also hitting some massive power spikes. Likely going to be a Soul Reaver in this slot, then Soul Gem. I mean, he's there. He's nearly there.
Yep, does end up being Soul Reaver now for Hurrywinde. Ends up being a Crusher for Panda Cat later on in the build. What's the word here, Miff? Do we miss the full ring build on the magical ADCs? Are we missing that meta nowadays, or no, not really?
Well, if you remember, that meta came in because Shaman's Ring was just like kind of nuts. I don't miss that.
Was that more than 2 years ago? Yeah, I don't remember that.
I think it was like a year and a half. It was like mid-season 7.
All right, so I
don't miss that.
Then.
I miss like having rings. I mean, magical ADCs are just cool, but having those rings at that level of strength, no, I'm good on that.
Yeah, maybe not. Well, Soul has still found a place in the meta here for a little while in Season 8. You saw more ability-based Soul. We still have her in and out of the meta, as we see here in this game. And off to a great start is Paul. I mean, a lot of the killing pressure early in this game from the Tartarus Titans, though set up on the left side of the map, has been rotated into by Paul, and Cyclonespin has definitely benefited to the tune of a couple kills here sometimes. But I think the important storyline here, Miff, and it's something we've talked about, but worth reiterating, is that Panda Cat was behind for a bit, but didn't fall entirely behind. Here's a nice rotation through from Paul as well. And I think by all metrics, we're even here kind of halfway through this game.
No, dead even. But when you're at a dead even match at like this point in the game, you have to evaluate which squad wants to be at this point in the match from even. And I'd argue that's the Tartarus Titans. They've got a much more standard composition. They've got a basic hunter, which is always very nice, whereas this double assassin composition really wants that capacity to all in. Just use Piercing Moonlight and say, that's our go button. We can do whatever we want from here. We just shut down one of these prominent hyper carries. I don't think that they've got that much of a buffer as a lead. I mean, 2,000 gold down, or maybe closer to 1,000, are the Jade Dragons. This next neutral objective, I think, is going to be very telling for the pace of this game. If the Jade Dragons are able to secure this one, that's their kind of, we're good. It's time to start fighting. Well, let's group up as 5. Let's keep rolling with that. If the Tartarus Titans pick this one up, they can effectively, yet again, slow down the game and put themselves in a position where they're feeling much more comfortable in the team fight.
Well, there are a couple important ones up. Oni Fury is here. Pyromancer will be up shortly. And so you could see a split if neither of these two teams are too keen to fighting right now. Good ward coverage, and by that I mean a singular ward for the Tartarus Titans is around this Oni Fury. So if PBM wants to rotate through, can clear out some of that ward coverage if the Jade Dragons then want to push in towards this Oni Fury a little bit later on. Usually the telltale sign that we're going to be fighting around this Fury is when the Soul laners start to make their way to the left side of the map. And Final K has already done so. Benji pushes out one more wave and goes back to base before maybe inching his way towards the left. Could be a slow burn here. Could be an opportunity, though, for Mike to find 2 with the Cataclysm. Gets beads out of both layers and Paul. Look at the beads on the left side there. Perfectly in sync. A lot of value from Polar Bear Mike on his quick engage in mid.
So now it's up to Sam for Soccer and Panda Cat to find the value off of that. The Tartarus Titans, though, undeterred, have pulled the Oni Fury, and it's burning so fast.
Oh, it is so quick from the Titans. Oni Fury low and secured by the Tartarus Titans. Can the Titans get out cleanly? That's then the next big topic of conversation. Benji's going to get chased down, but he will leap away as well. And without that Cataclysm, without that blink from Mike, there's no chase to be had. So you get a great bit of value in the mid lane if you're the Dragons, and then don't do much with it around the Fury.
Hey, 2 beads for a Fury still is an opportunity for the Jade Dragons to try and find something on the map. That's why we see them group so hard here on the left-hand side, trying to force forward the carries of the Titans.
Man, Layers is then going to solo out the Pyromancer as well. It's one thing if you split a neutral objective. You get Pyro while the other team gets Oni, but Layers is going to effectively solo out Pyro. Paul there just to help him out a little bit. And so the Tartarus Titans get both neutral objectives. They do lose a tier 1 tower on left, so at least a little bit of something going for the Jade Dragons. And really, I mean, you're still looking, Miff, for the next 83 seconds or so with those 2 sets of beads down for the Tartarus Titans. That's where it can be a more long-term win for the Dragons if you can punish Layers, if you can punish Paul over the next minute or so.
But looking at Layers' build, he's gone for a little bit of survivability with that Wing Blade, some magic defense to deal with Hurrywin, as well as Raiju no longer going to be a good lockdown tool. That's slow only. Going to make Layers a little bit faster. So sure, no beads for a minute, but still decent survivability, self-sustain from a 9 turns plusing as well. So I think it's more so, can we shut down Paul? And then when you talk about Paul, Desaparate and Aegis are still going to be available. CC immunity inside of the ultimate. I mean, great targets for Polar Bear Mike to force these beads off of, but still incredibly safe picks for the Titans. I don't think there's much risk to them.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, it's something we've mentioned a little bit, but Sanford Soccer wants to jump in. He has Piercing Moonlight to get him into the backline relatively easily. Panda Cat wants to be in that backline as an assassin. both a Rom and a Soul are pretty safe in delaying out the fights and keeping themselves alive. And so it could be tough for the Dragons to play on the edge of those fights.
It could be. So instead, they're trying to force a 5-on-5 right now inside of this Tier 1 tower.
Ooh, blink in from Aurora. That's got Samper Soccer behind the wall. Not much damage onto the Tsukiyomi. Cataclysm from Mike just catches out one. Benji, what can you make happen? He has a cage ready to go, and there are some grouped up members of the Dragons. A cage a bit off to the right, so it's only Samper Soccer in there. Piercing Moonlight, I think, clips Paul here. And so Sam will go in and out, right back towards Benji. He goes in Final Case, zoning out the Tartarus Titans so well. You need this range damage to start to connect, and look at the health bars from the Titans. They are melting here. Aegis, beads, all of it getting used by Cyclonespin, and finally the hat drops. And it's Hurrywin adding the second. Layers being chased down by Panda Cat, who's on a killing spree, and Benji will leap away. Only 2 survive.
Final K goes huge inside of that team fight, creating infinite space. Benji goes deep in the back line, finds the cage on a Sam for Soccer, and Final K says, no, you're not walking past me. I'm drawing the line in the sand right here, and we're going to take the team fight immediately afterward. Jade Dragons re-engage so incredibly strong, shutting down 3 and headed straight for the fire.
Right to the Fire Giant they go. The Tartarus Titans, they got 2. Benji and Paul coming back from base, but Paul headed right down mid lane. Benji's the only one who can make something happen, and the Fire Giant will be alive by the time Benji gets in here. Can you at least try to kill back? Benji now doing serious work for the Tartarus Titans. Fire Giant low, but gets secured by the Jade Dragons, but Benji on a warpath gets Final K off the map. Hurrywin being chased down by Paul. This is a 2 versus 5, making a 2v3. Benji with the double. 3
members of the Jade Dragons get to maintain the Fire Giant around their belt. Benji looking to rectify that. If he could just find one more target, I'd argue the Tartarus Titans have done enough here. PBM, well, he's not at much risk. That's a Geb. He's got Stone Shield still available.
Panda is right over this wall as well, and Panda's at half HP. Benji might be privy to this, looking, searching for the set. But the set will get out alive. So not great for the Titans, but could be a whole lot worse. It is a 2,000 gold lead almost exactly for the Tartarus Titans, and the Jade Dragons get Fire Giant, but only maintain it on 3. And so could be worse for the Titans, could be worse for the Dragons.
Effectively for the Jade Dragons right now, Sam for Soccer is your ADC. He's got the longest range auto attack, so probably pretty nice for the Dragons to maintain Fire Giant on him if they are going to look to siege. But again, this is one of the weaknesses of this Jade Dragons draft, not having a hunter. Your basics, your ranged basics rather, really only coming from Hurrywin inside of these siege scenarios, and he doesn't have Fire Giant for himself. It is going to be very hard for the Jade Dragons to utilize this in Tartarus Titans territory. Jade Dragons still will have a distinct advantage fighting around Pyromancer when that respawns in just under a minute. Gold Fury coming up very shortly, but Tier 2 towers, I don't think the Jade Dragons are really in a position to force a fight there.
Right. It feels like the Fire Giant might help you a little bit, but the Jade Dragon's not overwhelmingly in charge of the map state at the moment to push that Fire Giant to its maxed value. At least not just yet. A Gold Fury is spawned. Maybe you find a pick. Maybe you find a fight on the end of this that then starts to snowball its way into the rest of the map. Finally, for the Jade Dragons, the Fury will go quietly. And it is the Gold Fury, so that'll shrink up that gold lead a decent bit. We were hovering right around 2,000. We're now sub 1,000 at 700 or 800 gold for the Jade Dragons. And so it's all about bringing that, for now, if you have to imagine, for the Dragons, it's getting that gold, getting that XP back closer towards even for that next cycle of the Fire Giant. Just about a minute and a half remaining on this specific power play. So the Titans at least showing up on the map enough to keep the Jade Dragons at bay.
And it seems like the Jade Dragons agree with us here on the cast. They don't love their odds on the Tier 2, so instead, again, we finish the Gold Fury, group up on the Pyro. Let's clear that one out. Maybe this Tier 1 on right. I doubt we see the Tartarus Titans put much of a defense up here, and this will be a good heat check for the Jade Dragons. If they don't spot any Titans out on this right-hand side, they could run away with a Tier 2 tower. Titans grouped up as 4 inside the mid lane. Jade Dragons grouped up as 4 on the right-hand side, and it will be a Tier 2 tower attempt here.
We'll see. Phoenix maybe out of the question for the Jade Dragons. 1 minute remaining on the Fire Giant buff. Tartarus Titans will rotate and force to this Tier 2 tower on right. Hurrywin's gone for a little defense in his build as well. Also Breastplate of Valor on the Raijin. Soul Reaver is in there as it has been for a little while, so this Raijin has big damage potential. But Paul with Rod of Tahuti plus Soul Reaver from range. Watch out for that big ultimate from Paul. That could chunk down some great targets for the Jade Dragons. Final K keeping things interesting here. Can he follow up on the good engage from Polar Bear Mike? Final K's around the back. The cage from Benji has locked
Rip.
the Gab right in place, and Aurora is the one who deals the final blow. Snipes out from Cyclonespin, clip onto Hurrywin, but Benji is right there to chase him down. Can Breastplate of Valor buy Hurrywin some time? The answer is yes. Paul drops his ultimate as well, but Panda chasing down the backline. Paul is on a killing spree. The Tartarus Titans stand strong beneath their tier 2.
Benji has to sacrifice himself to force back 3 members of the Jade Dragons, but that opens the door for the Tartarus Titans to shut down San Francisco inside of their own backline. And there it is, rearing its head. The Jade Dragons are going to struggle on these sieges. At the end of the day, sure, they are able to pick up this tier 2 tower, but as far as Fire Giant power plays go, not the most impressive I've ever seen. And PandaCat, you're all alone.
Yeah, can Layers delay PandaCat from getting back to base? This is the 1v1 that becomes a 2v1. As Paul is here on right, PandaCat, either you're trading out, you're getting out alive. Layers nearly goes down, but it is a big pick. 1 minute on the death timer from PandaCat, who's stuck around to take down that tier 2 tower. Fire Giant's going to be up before PandaCat is, and that's a nice advantage for the Titans.
It is, but the Titans need to work their way in now. Jade Dragons control vision around the Fire Giant pit as it stands, 3 wards deep
by a hefty margin
on the Tartarus Titans side of the map. So the Titans can reset, buy some wards, walk up, real casual-like to this Fire Giant as it still is 30 seconds left on PandaCat's respawn, and try and force an engagement here. It's going to be a little while till the Jade Dragons are at full fighting strength yet again, but don't get it twisted. This is a fight the Jade Dragons want to take. Any engagement that happens in neutral territory is where this double assassin composition really will flourish.
Yeah, I mean, if you're doing Fire Giant under the pretense that PandaCat's not going to be in the fight, you have to pull it almost immediately when it spawns, and that's what the Titans are doing here. 5 seconds left on the respawn from PandaCat, so you're going to have a 4v5 for about 15 seconds, and it is burning fast. Hurrywin,
Point
Titans
toss.
drums! Titans secure the FG, and now it is a disengage from the Dragons, minus PBM, who has gone back in, and he will go down as well. And so it is Fire Giant plus a kill, and that's now a stagger death. The moment PandaCat comes back up, PBM goes down, and the Titans now have free reign to push in -1 Geb for 40 seconds.
And just watch how quickly the Tartarus Titans strip away these towers, man. They are going to shred expeditiously. This one doesn't count. It was only a breath
That
away
was
from
quick.
dead.
That was
But
real
this
quick.
tier 2, watch this one, man. This composition is so good for exactly this.
All right, so the tower started at 27-13 and went down at 27-17. So just under 4 seconds from dead. The Tartarus Titans, they smell blood in the water. They see red in their eyes, a chance to end the game, especially if you get a kill. On to Hurrywin. Final K drops the shield, but it's immediately gone as Thunder has hit its mark. Save for Soccer. Will snag a kill onto Layers. Still has Piercing Moonlight if the Jade Dragons want to chase this fight down. Lose both towers in mid, but you keep your Phoenix alive, and you get Fire Giant off Layers, who's dead for 45.
Layers just dives way too deep inside of that fight, trying to chase out Hurrywin. Is able to strip the Aegis off the mid laner, the Jade Dragons, but puts himself so far out of position there. Unfortunate one for Layers inside of this. If you could look at the background of the Tartarus Titans, we saw their coach wringing their hands, stressed out with how that siege went.
Yeah, thank God I'm on this side of the game. I get to talk about
there
it
he
and
is.
enjoy it because
It's stressful.
yeah, this is stressful. I mean, you see in the background of Paul's camera there, you're just hoping your players can make the good choices and play this game properly down the stretch. We are real close to even here at this point. Fire Giant on 4 of the Titans. Primal Fury started by the Dragons and finished by the Dragons. But is Benji going to trade out his life? No, mobile enough is the Odin to leap on away from this engagement. So the Jade Dragons at least able to pull back that Fury. And now you see how impactful Layers dying was. I mean, you lose both your towers in mid there, Myth. But another minute or so burns off this FG buff. Luckily, you still got both towers on left, and so maybe your left side Phoenix is safe for the time being. But with how fast the Titans do these objectives, still a chance for a siege.
Yeah, the Jade Dragons defense is still incredibly strong. Raiju is going to strip through the entirety of the Tartarus Titans. Once the engage is true for the Dragons, it's very easy for both PandaCat and Samper Soccer to close gap, and we can't sleep on PBM's Cataclysms this game.
No.
Always finding at minimum two targets,
Yeah, they've been
at
impactful.
maximum 3 or 4. So the Jade Dragons, though, with all that knowledge, do elect to let this tier 2 tower fall down. They want to put up another defense on the Phoenix, and I think Layers learned his lesson. He's going to stick a little bit closer to the rest of his team this time around.
We are in the death throes of this Fire Giant buff, but the Titans still feel as if there's map state to be gained.
It's 20%
Yeah,
instantly.
that is a decent chunk of damage missing, and that is Benji using the shield, walking in, allowing Cyclonespin and Paul to hit their damage, and then Benji walking out. He's going to do the same old thing. Who needs a minion wave when you got Benji? You're going to take 0 damage on your way in. 50 seconds left on the FG buff. Wave about to crash in. The Jade Dragons, they're here, and they're not going to let this one go easily.
Mike hovering on the right-hand side, waiting for the opportunity to blink in.
Yeah, he's
Can't
got
take
blink.
damage beforehand. But
All
only
right.
40 seconds left on the Fire Giant. The Tartarus Titans not going to leave it up to risk. They realize this fight is likely going to last longer than they've got with the Fire Giant. Instead, having exposed 2 Phoenixes are happy having these win conditions on the map.
2,000 gold for a couple members of the Titans, 1,000 for the remaining few. Completed Berserker Shield with some of that gold for layers. And Paul is going to hit some sort of power spike here. He's at least going to be able to upgrade his starter item. You'd assume maybe Hidden Blade, because we've seen a lot of that with the Mannequin Scepter start. But Myth, I assumed incorrectly, it is not Hidden Blade. Instead, it's the Mannequin Mace for Paul on the upgrade.
Yeah, good luck to anyone who's standing in front of the auto attacks of Paul right now, man. This guy is going to absolutely shred through you. Toss a power pot on top of that one as well, and it's going to be pretty nice. Not only is it affording you additional auto attack damage, but also 30 physical prods up against a double
Four
assassin
times
composition.
damage on jungle monsters and
Yeah,
bosses.
you
Oh my
shred objectives.
That is so much
His
damage.
Fire Giant doesn't stand a chance. The Tartarus Titans already had a phenomenal composition for going for these objectives, and now only gets better for them.
Cyclone just
And
gut chin
Bumba
size,
Sphere,
like-
by the way, for layers, so he's shredding objectives as well. Gungnir's
Yeah.
Might for additional attack speed. The Jade Dragons, if they want to put up a defense, they gotta be there first.
They gotta be here.
They gotta be there first.
Well, and think back to I mean, Panda Cat was dead for the last Fire Giant, and so, you know, a bit of an asterisk on how quickly the Titans pulled that when they realized they had the 4v5 advantage anyway. But the Titans, they did not waste a moment. The second that the objective was damageable, the Titans put damage onto it. Might have to play this one a little slower as the Jade Dragons are here, but if you want to take a fight in front of
Where'd
it,
it
maybe
go?
you can. Pyromancer, yeah, is missing. As it had started, Mike
That was
rolls
just
his way
Paul.
in. Paul has to disapparate away. Paul with the Ob Shard and Soul Reaver, his final 2 items. Hurrywin has finished his Ob Shard as well. So 2, 3, and 4 doesn't do the damage that this Raijin can do all that much justice at full build.
So now, 32 minutes in, is an enhanced Fire Giant that is available. That's what these two teams are fighting over. Going to strip away the backdoor protections of any of these structures to whichever team is able to put this one on their belt. And the Tartarus Titans, or maybe specifically Benji, he's playing with abandon, man. He's not concerned with the damage output of the Jade Dragons. Every time that Raven Shout is available to him, he walks up, tries to find a stun, and just keeps putting poke into the Jade Dragons. No sustain on the Dragon side means that every single bit of poke matters.
I mean, look at this from Benji. He's bought so much space, and this is where it's awkward for the Dragons. You have enough damage on the back end, you could do the FG. Aurora finds a blink in, and ultimate onto Sanford Soccer.
He's low.
Health is missing because Cyclonespin hit the snipes. Fine, okay, pops the thorns. That means this Nike wants to go, and it wants to go now. Cataclysm is huge from Polar Bear Mike. Paul disapparates away, but Fine, okay, in on the chase. And that is a big ultimate from the Nike. And maybe the most unfortunate timing I've seen on a pause here, right around this Fire Giant. And Paul gets absolutely destroyed here, Mifflin. And so that is a good start to the fight for the Jade Dragons as we sort things out here. Don't worry, we will get back in the game here shortly and find out which team is going to win this this thrilling team fight. But a great start to the engagement, wasn't it, for the Jade Dragons? You caught Paul just a bit overextended, and I don't even know if you can call it that. I mean, Aegis, Beads, Disapparate, all used, and there's enough chase down. That's what we've talked about this Dragons comp, chase down. It was there, and it was all onto Paul. So for the remainder of this fight, you're without your soul.
That's frontline diff, man. I mean, that's just PBM and Final K saying, we're going to get you. Cataclysm does so much damage now. Paul effectively loses like 30% of his HP just to PBM's ultimate, and then all Final K has to do is say, all right, well, PBM forced the relics. He also forced the Disapparate, so we could just jump in, just find it, and immediately knocks him up out of the Disapparate and finds the finisher for that kill. So now the fight is a little bit disjointed. Last we saw, it's 2 members of the front line of the Jade Dragons deep on the Tartarus Titans side of the map, whereas the rest of the Tartarus Titans are trying their best to find something else, trying to find at least one return kill. Worth noting, I don't think Sanford Soccer can participate in this fight anymore.
Yeah, that's a good point. The ultimate from Cyclonespin chunked Sam, and Aurora was in there with his ultimate as well. You get Sam down to half HP, so it's not a full kill, but it's a TKO. He's technically knocked out. He's got to, at least for the moment, take a deep breath and leave the fight. So there's quick return kill opportunity. Benji was off on the right, just being obnoxious on this Odin at the start of this engagement. Maybe that lulled the Jade Dragons into kind of counter-rotating out of that almost. The Tartarus Titans maybe feeling like their pressure's on right. At any rate, when you get back into this fight, that's maybe where you have to look, Miff, is where this Odin is able to find that re-engagement. Because the last we saw, Benji was pushed up pretty far on that right.
That's actually a really good point. I'd completely forgotten how far removed Benji is from the actual engagement. He's literally in a lane while the rest of the fight's happening in a different lane. So it's going to be a long time for Benji to just walk his way back in there and try and find something. Ring of Spears, though, still available.
Ring of Spears still available, and the rest of this team fight still available. Mifflin and I and the rest of the squad is going to take a quick break. And when we come back, the thrilling conclusion to Game 1.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for your patience. Have a little bit of unfortunate news to give. Unfortunately, the game was unrecoverable after that last little team fight. Good news is the Dragons were able to win off the tail end of that team fight. The players did get to finish out the game. So the most important thing we do want to let you know is even though that we could not get back into that match, the players were able to continue all the way through. We went back, checked on them on the boots. They did play the game out, and it was the Jade Dragons who did come out on top of that. And again, we're very sorry that we could not get back into the replay, but we're going to try and get everything moving forward here and get ready and get set up for game number 2. Now the Dragons, a nice little win here in game number 1. Again, unfortunate we didn't get to see the end of the little team fight, but we did kind of get to see a little taste of how that team fight started off with Paul getting picked off there by Final K at the very beginning of it, and that's kind of what allowed them to kind of spiral forward and the Jade Dragons to take that first one.
And it's interesting to see because it was a really weird dynamic game, right? The Dragons are doing well-ish, but not well enough. Like they're always just a little bit behind. Good early fights from the Titans make sure that they're shutting them down just enough. But ultimately, I think you get the full effect later on. As much as you didn't get to see it every single fight, but 2 Assassins, especially going towards the end, is perfect for trying to find a single pick onto something like Cyclonespin or onto someone like Soul. So it made things a lot easier, I think, for the Dragons to open up that door, that can of worms, and deal with it. They get that one Fire Giant, which I think slows down the Titans. They lose the next Fire Giant, which is unfortunate for them, but then they win the fight that matters and are able to snowball that one directly into a big win for them, which I think is a huge deal. Especially because, I mean, me and you were talking about it. There was a point we looked up at the screen and we're like, there's no way that the Dragons go 0-4 this weekend. Like, it feels wrong to think about that. Now, granted, they could still go like 1-4 this weekend. That's still on the horizon
still a possibility.
for them. But I do think that this is a really good showcase for the fact that they have the capabilities to turn it around, and also shows their flexibility in team draft.
I think another thing that just does need to be pulled from this game specifically is Final K on this Nike and the success that Nike as a whole has had in the competitive scene. And remember, this is a while back when they changed Sunder and they made it to remove shields. Everybody thought, all right, Nike is dead. Nobody's ever going to play this god again because now she basically doesn't have an ultimate. Well, then we've been seeing her slowly rise back up. Sunder's had some smaller changes, and Nike's been pretty much nothing but successful, upwards to 70% in the SCC level for her win rate, even up here in the SPL. Looking at 60-70%, this is a god that's going to be sticking around for a while in the solo lane, and it might be a god that teams might need to start looking towards banning away from Final K, maybe just ban away from these Dragons teams, because so far these guys have really been making this god look really strong, especially here in Final K's hands.
Yeah, I think that's something, and we had kind of mentioned it, but something that really needs to be handled. It's weird to say appropriately, but it's difficult to do, right? Like, Benji is a great solo laner. They controlled it for a good portion, but the slows are massive. It almost warrants having to get a Heavenly Agility, but then you're juggling what other relics you're going to be able to get, things like that. And, of course, that's assuming that you even have it up enough and often enough that you're going to be able to deal with the Nike ult, let alone the fact that Sunder helps deal with the shield. That it's otherwise just a second health bar that you now have to burn through. It's just so complicated. But she's still in this weird area. I mean, if you look at it, you know, you've got Ullr, Yamoja, Artios, Sylvanas, Khepri, Terra. Which one of those do you drop?
Yes.
And when Sylvanas, Khepri, Terra are the Dragons bans, who do you drop? Ullr, Yamoja, or Artio? Who do you want the Dragons to play, by the way, if you want to ban Nike? I'd rather them have Nike and try to deal with that.
I don't know, maybe you take it away from. I don't know, man. It just looks so dominant on that Nike. The rest across the board, though, you know, that was, as we got to the later end of the game, that's when the Nike really got to have their time to shine. The dual lane with this set that, again, up until really this week, we were only seeing Cyclonespin play this set as ADC, and that was only, you know, every so often he'd pop that one out. But now PandaCat, a little bit of a slow start for it, ended up going on a killing spree at one point, and then finally got that shut down. Just a very back-and-forth game between these teams. Let's hop right into picks and bans for game number 2 and see what adjustments do get made between these two teams as we get ready to join right in. But, I mean, with those 6 bans that you list out there, it's so hard to really figure out where you slot something new in, because those are all gods who are at the top of the meta right now. Ullr, pretty much we're just going to call him the #1 hunter by pretty much everybody's mindsets. Tons of damage you can output. He's been picked and banned pretty much every single time he's been left open in that first pick, you know, second pick kind of slot. Yamoja, solid support. You can't just let her through. Even with the change of Surge, she still seems so potent, so powerful. Khepri has been also a #1 rising pick, and then all of the new guard for the support, and then you throw Artio in there for the solo lane. Even despite the fact that Artio hasn't had the most success in solo lane, I don't think that's a risk that really any team is willing to take.
Yeah, she's just such a pain in the ass. That's the only way to describe her. I'm sorry, chat, but she's just so annoying. She gives good healing. She's got good cripple fields. She's got a stun. She's got good damage. She's got everything. And that makes it a little obnoxious in the middle of a team fight, as you can imagine, trying to deal with her.
A little might be an understatement.
An understatement.
Very.
So it'd be surprising if I would argue actually if the Dragons let her through. If I am the Titans, she's the one I'm maybe most willing to drop. Like, is she going to be the most fun in the world to play for the solo laners? Probably not the most enticing. Mechanically challenging? Not really. You know what she's going to do. It's very, very easy. But if I'm the Dragons, I'm the ones who want to ban her, as opposed to the Titans, who probably, admittedly, would need to force, but could force Benji to play her.
Well, there's be one change here, where it was a Khepri in the second slot of the bans for the Dragons. This time they'll take the Erlong Shen. A little shot there at Layers. One of the only players in the league really still going for this Erlong Shen. We do see Panatom occasionally play it from the Leviathans, and really the only warrior who's kind of stuck around with this new assassin meta. That Mannequins just allows him to do so much damage when the late stage comes. You get to play with that Hidden Blade, and you can pretty much kind of just one-shot anybody, especially if you go for those more full damage builds. It will still be the Sylvanas. A Khepri ban out of the Titans, interestingly enough, even though they have the first pick selection. And then Yamoja and Uller and a Sylvanas on the other side. One more ban for the Dragons.
Here's the other thing that's been really weird to me. Khepri has been a must-ban for certain teams, and other teams completely ignore him. But a few weeks ago, it felt like he was everywhere. I'm just curious. It is just one of those fun things that changes, obviously, with patches bouncing up and down. But without getting banned out, that does leave the Ardio still available. Terra's still available. That was from last time. And this is going to make another big interesting thing. The Odin, the Geb, the Raijin, the Tiamat, all of which we had talked about before, still wide open. And I really like what the Dragons do with this ban, because when you're in the second pick, this is always the way to look at it. You either need to stick to the meta bans, and then you're going to get 2 of whatever is the top of the next tier, or you ban out things that, admittedly, like Sylvanas feels sort of meta, but Erlong, that's definitely a targeted ban. Terra feels more targeted, even though she kind of overlaps into both. And this gives you that opportunity to now pick 2 that are very powerful, admittedly, while still having to give up one really strong pick.
And that one strong pick that the Jade Dragons are giving up because that Erlong ban is the Geb. 70% win rate in 10 games that it has been picked up.
Pretty good.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things, like, you know, up until 10 games, having a 60, 70% whatever win rate, it's kind of okay. You haven't really got there, but once you hit 10 and above, that's where you really see kind of the testament of how strong a god really is for what their success rate is. Now you're at 10 games, you're at 70% win rate for him. We've been seeing so many of these Geb bans as of recent. I believe we're up to 18 or 19 Geb bans, according to what has at least been here for the Geb. And the fact that the 10 games he's been let through, he's won 7 of those. But at the same time, you are giving up 2 really powerful picks to the Jade Dragons. The Odin, which was the priority pick for the Titans in game number 1, now goes to the Dragons. And the Ardio that got left open because of this Erlong Shen, because that one god gets banned away, the Titans get to get away with having both the Odin and the Ardio, and then Layers will get to grab his Camazotz.
Layers is really good at Camazotz. It's one of those things, 2 games played, 50% win rate. You can ignore that. Layers is good at Camazotz. Look at his year-long.
Period.
And maybe just his career-wide portion of Camazotz. He's done and performs on this god. And so that is definitely something that's going to be an issue for the Jade Dragons.
Yes.
Now, here's what I'm most concerned about, is that the Dragons are going to somehow turn this into an Odin jungle. I'm not a fan of Odin jungle at all. I just like, it's one of those things. And so I'm curious if it's going to be Ardio solo. That's where she fits the best. But like a Guardian, it's not the end of the world. And I think Mike would be able to make her look really good in the duo lane. And that would mean that whether it's Ardio or Odin, I think both FineOK and Mike are very adept at playing them and making them look good. But that's what I want it to stick to. I want them to be one in the duo, one in the solo. Probably, ideally, Ardio solo, just because I like the way she fits over there. And Odio. that's a deadly fusion.
That is a nightmare waiting to happen. Now you have Ardio, and all of a sudden you give her a long-range stun instead of just the immediate, and then she can just drop a cage. What if she likes when she switches stances, she's able to drop the cage? That would be some nightmare fuel. Jade Dragons for their second bans. It'll be Set and Nike, interestingly enough, maybe because they had that Odin and Ardio, so they've got that solo lane locked in between one of the two, so they will take the Nike off the table. And the Titans will go with their same bans they did in game number 1. Susano and Hunbets, both gods that Sam has performed successfully on in seasons past, in phases past, in weeks past, making sure to keep that god out of his hands. A Heimdall rounds out their draft, and the Morrigan on the other side for the Titans. We kind of just skipped right past this one. One of Paul's big shots at the last Worlds.
I'm going to say the top 3 for the Dragons, Odin, Ardio, really solid. Heimdall, he can do well, he can do not well. We've seen both. It's Panda Cat, so I err towards well more than anything.
Right.
Geb, Camazotz, and the Morrigan is nuts on the other side. That is such a good 3 to pick up. You get good shields. Cataclysm is such a great ultimate for late game fights. Camazotz is like the pillar of survivability when it comes down to it. And now you have a Morrigan who can transform into either a successful layers in that Camazotz or can turn into any number of other gods. You can have your own Artio, things like that, your own Odin cages. And so I think this is going to be very, very fun to watch from the Titans just in the top 3.
And then a god that we really only have been seeing come out of the Kings as of recent makes its way here into game number 2. The Jade Dragons pick up Discordia for the mid lane.
Man.
And then on the opposite side, Cthulhu for the Tartarus Titans. Final K brought this god out in like week number 2 of this phase, and they got banned away from him afterwards. No team wanted to deal with it. He's had chances to bring it back out. Has varying levels of success on it. We just know that damage output is the name of the game whenever he does get that Cthulhu in his hands, but it will be going to Benji. So we're looking at potentially the Cthulhu Artio matchup or the Cthulhu Odin matchup between those two, because we still haven't seen exactly what the Jade Dragons want to go with their 10th pick just yet. Most likely will be saving that final pick here for Sam for Soccer. I'm just going to say I don't think we're going to see Odin go jungle. I'm in agreement with you here and thinking that this is both of these have got to go towards one of these side lanes, and a Chernobog is a final selection for the Tartarus Titans. Rounds out their dual lane as a Geb Chernobog.
And I really like this just because I was looking at, they were hovering like the Charybdis. I didn't like as much. They switched over to, what was that? That was right there. Jingwei for a second as the hover. Not a big fan of either of those because I want Cyclone on something that can carry, because Paul is going to have a lot of carry potential on Morrigan. But you have to look at the fact that Paul can turn into another Cthulhu. Paul can turn into Artio here. Paul can turn into Odin here. Like, you are going to have the most ridiculous front line in the game with this Morrigan and any amount of success from either side. That makes me want Camazotz to carry. That makes me want Cyclonespin to carry. And so layers, we already know what you can do on this. And I wanted something, you know, like Jingwei can kind of get stuff done. You can look at Charybdis, from what we've seen, can distract so far. So I was really happy to see this locked in just because I do feel just far and above that the Titans have a really good team fight draft. I like what the Dragons have done to try and deal with it. Discordia's damage and Nemesis's shred should help deal with Cthulhu. But the fact that there's so much else to worry about on that team makes me a little more worried about the Dragons throughout many phases of this game.
You know, that's interesting you bring up, because back in the past when Cthulhu was locked in, it was usually warranted with a Nemesis ban to couple along with that pick, just because you go up into the big ultimate, now you have even more health, a little bit more procs, and you shred that instantly with that Nemesis. So curious how that will play out. But the problem is they have the potential of dealing with Cthulhu 2. You have 2 of these Cthulhus now that can rampage to the back line. And there's always that question of, do you stagger your Cthulhu ultimate? You get one, you burn some of the relics, you get the beads, get the Aegis, and then you have your second one pop in, or you just have them both go up and you just go on a complete rampage against anybody and everyone who decides to walk in your path. Going to be curious to see how Paul does play this Morrigan, though I'm not going to question him at all. I mean, they won a world championship on this god for a reason.
Paul, this is going to be a really fun game to watch the Morrigan play. And it's just, again, it's so weird, but looking at the front line, man, it's just so much work to overcome. Like, look, Artio's good. Odin's nuts. They're top picks for a reason. But I have to imagine that having either of those available with what is on the Titans, it's going to make things skew a little more towards that team.
Let's jump right into game number 2. The action will delay no longer.
Jade Dragons able to take game 1 after picking Paul late on, and now push us on to a game 2 with a great opportunity to close out this set. And how about this here, Mifflin? You get not only 1, but 2 of the priority frontliners. And priority somehow feels like an understatement. I mean, Odin, Artio, they've been first band priority across the league here for a couple of weeks, and Jade Dragons get them both.
Yeah, much different look from the Jade Dragons holistically, too. I mean, last time around it was double assassin, kind of early game-centric focus. Now you've got a standard hunter inside of the Heimdall, Nemesis for defense shred to deal with things like the Descent into Madness on this Cthulhu. So maybe you don't want to go for Cthulhu 2, and then Sim for Soccer will have double targets that he can look for and try and immediately shut down inside of these fights. And you said it, man. I tried to skirt the issue, but Artio and Odin together, that is stifling. Who's really want to line up against that? The cripple, the stuns, the cage.
Sim for Soccer blinks in. He's found Paul with the slow, but Layers counter blinks in as well. And so Paul,
hurry!
He's caught out by the Strife. And there is no damage on the
Fine?
back until FineOK joins the fight. And first blood for the Jade Dragons. Hurrywin lives. Hurrywin's low, but he will not go to 0. Jade Dragon started off with 2.
Man, that was by the skin of his teeth. Hurrywin survives with sub 30 HP inside of that
My
one.
man had like 10.
But he goes in so aggressive, too. Utilizing that Aegis early on instead of going for the beads saves his life from one auto attack of Lairs. And, well, Lairs didn't have the leap. He had Screech. He had Vampiric Bats. He has great damage output, but not enough chase down. The Jade Dragons pulling it ahead early.
I mean, out of nowhere, FineOK rotates into that fight. I'm not sure the Titans were expecting
Bro,
that.
Mike was there.
Right, Mike was over here in the mid lane. That was wild. Mike, really FineOK benefiting. 1 kill, 1 assist on that Odin. Great start to this game. Sanford Soccer as well on this Nemesis. I think it's worth chatting about this one a little bit here, Miff. Really unconventional, I would argue, in both of these jungle picks here. We've seen picks that can work through this mace tree a lot here since 8.9. Both of these picks probably able to do so well.
Yeah, I think Sanford Soccer will be going for the majority of the mace tree. Still utilizes Crusher incredibly well. Brawler's Beat Stick, very easy to apply when you have an auto-aim ultimate. So I think that he will be able to utilize it pretty well. But if one of these gods got a bigger buff from 8.9, it's probably Camazotz, right? I mean, he's just going down that entire mace tree, top a Heartseeker on there, and you're feeling just fine going forward. But as far as the 1v1s go, Camazotz, as Gore said, does have great survivability, but generally, you pick this god for his damage output. He doesn't have any great way to deal with this Nemesis. The shield, it just works.
Polar Bear Mike walks in, steals away the purple, and walks right on out. So bad to worse for the Tartarus Titans as far as the start to this game goes. Luckily, I like how you like to say it, Miff. A couple kills does not a lead make. It's what you do with that moving forward.
That's smart. Who said that?
God, I don't know. I did just now.
Oh, you're
so
smart.
I'll take credit for it. Thank you very much. Sanford Soccer still here by mid. 10 seconds left on his blink. And so that's the big pivot point to look out for. FineOK is here towards mid as well. FineOK does have Cage. Blink forward.
Bro, no.
Bomb, Cage. All of them missing. I respect the attempt, though. Paul's still 15 seconds away from his beads. You're playing with those thin margins if you're the Dragons. Bad news for FineOK. You're going to miss a few of the minions here in this wave.
If FineOK cages Paul there, I almost would have called it GG, right? Paul's dead to rights at level 4 as the Morrigan up against 3 members of the Jade Dragons in mid, but luckily Paul able to avoid that one narrowly, and it does not only cost FineOK the blink, but as you said, going to miss out some of that farm and lane.
Sanford Soccer gets the slow on to Lairs, but not wanting to overextend without knowing where Paul is, despite a slower start for Paul. Stealth in to stun, enough damage from Lairs there. Keep Sanford Soccer honest, and so the Nemesis will head right back on out. Level 5 reach by both of these mid laners here, Miff, and I think this Discordia has been a pretty fun pick to follow along with. Big Man Tings has looked fantastic when we've seen this pick for him, and something it feels like more mid laners in the league are starting to wrap their heads around. More mid laners like this Discordia pick. You get pretty good damage output by the time the game is over, and it feels like there's enough utility in that kit as well. To help out in the team fight even outside of damage.
Discordia has great self-peel with the Strife, the Unruly Magic as well, one of the better DPS abilities in the game. Having a cripple up against a composition like this never feels bad either, as Paul, maybe caught out a little bit here in mid, transforms immediately into the Camazotz, and PBM says, word, easy changeling for me, thanks for that.
Yeah, it's got to be a win. If nothing else for Polar Bear Mike, Paul's going to at least pick up his red buff here. But how about the threat of this RDO out of the duo lane? I mean, we've seen RDO solo lane, I don't know what, Miff, 90% of the time probably has been RDO solo, a little bit of support here and there. Do you feel like you lose all that much? You stick RDO over in support, it maybe takes a little bit longer to wind up, get those levels, get those items online, but do you really feel like you're missing that much in support versus solo?
You're able to go pretty tanky immediately out of support, which means that you're able to act as that front line a little bit earlier on, and by acting earlier on, you also get to get involved earlier on. PBM already making his stamp known on the game, and, well, he rotated at level 2 as well. The same could be said of FineOK, though, so maybe this argument falls flat in just this one game, but generally RDO out of support is originally where she was locked in. You're sacrificing damage for just a ton of CC lockdown and the ability to sit very deep in the back line with very little repercussions.
Yeah, I think, and it's a pick that works so well for Mike. Geb looked good for him in game 1. Obviously, the Jade Dragons won with it, but the ability for Mike to feel comfortable doing something like this. I mean, you're just running down the enemy jungler, you're invading, you're stealing away a little bit of the gold, a little bit of the XP. This is how Mike likes to play. You like to get in the enemy team's face early, you like to stay there often, and RDO allows Mike to do that. Looks like it'll be Gauntlet of Thebes early here. Roar has opted for that same build. 6 stacks already on Aurora, so you're going to have a little bit of that extra defense. And it looks like, you know, there was the Titans prioritizing heavy physical defense last game. You get kind of the double assassins, makes some sense. A little bit more evenly spread, a little bit more traditional in the composition for the Jade Dragons here. So Roar going Thebes, maybe keeps the support build a little bit more standard as well. You don't have to go Sovereignty immediately, anything like that.
Yeah, it is going to be pretty standard, I'm thinking, from the Tartarus Titans insofar as builds going forward. Maybe we see Paul still like to pick up some sort of physical defense, as we even saw Hurrywin go for it last time around, and we know Paul does like to be generally a little bit more survivable, but on the Morrigan, you kind of need that one-shot potential. You need the ability to just generate threat by being invisible on the map. So Paul, if he does elect to pick up some utility inside of the build, will likely be a little bit later on. And with Doomorb in that first slot, maybe I'm completely wrong. Seems like my man is trying to deal damage, and he's trying to do it quick.
And all over the map with some of that extra movement speed. I do want to bring up Panda Cat because in the game, or in the set rather, that we saw the Jade Dragons play yesterday, you know, look, Panda Cat certainly wasn't bad, but definitely was not the usual standout performance. So I think a turnaround set here from Panda is going to be great. How about this over in the solo lane? Look at the damage that's connected onto layers. A lot of that brought to you by the Nemesis, as Sanford Soccer's tried to read the bat out of hell, but Cyclonespin, he's rotated in. And Polar Bear Mike has as well. Layers the first to go down. Final K leaps up, leaps forward, but there is no cage on the back end of this fight. Mike now has to scurry on away.
No way.
Paul is transformed into the Kamazats. And the last bit of damage will connect on the
no shot
here, though the double stun will delay things out. Titans able to rotate in and trade out a kill.
Yeah, PBM trades his life for Layers'. Yeah, good trade. You also got Changeling and Descent into Madness. You forced Cyclonespin to rotate out of lane and miss out on a fair deal farm, and he was already playing in a deficit because of the early rotation of PBM, allowing Panda Cat to get so much solo farm. That's an entire wave lost to your tower, and, well, he didn't really get anything for it, just an assist for Cyclone in that one. The Jade Dragons come out far ahead in this small little skirmish, and it's reflected in the slash lines. It's reflected on the charts. 3,000 gold, 8 minutes in, and a fair chunk of experience as well going forward.
And it's good you bring it up, Miff. Talking about PBM towards the end of that fight, looked a little difficult to lock down. I predicted Gauntlet of Thebes was 2/3 of the way right, and then there's a pivot there towards the end. Mail of Renewal for Mike. So out of standard as far as what we normally see immediately supports opting towards, but still provides some good value for this RDO.
Yeah, it's going to give you a good deal of survivability. I can see Hindu Man in the back right now just cackling. He's been preaching Mail of Renewal since it's had its rework, man. It's a great item for yourself, but he is going to be sacrificing a little bit insofar as aura defense for the rest of the team. Gauntlet of Thebes still going to be the hallmark in that regard. But that said, PBM now pivoting into what could be a Void Stone, could be a Stone of Foul, something along those lines. This is a very aggressive style of play that we're seeing from Mike right now. He's not falling behind. I'd argue he's doing just fine. Finds a kill inside of that engagement. He's been all over the map. PBM on tour, essentially. You said maybe it's a slight pivot from solo lane to support. I'd argue he's kind of trying to bring solo to support.
Yeah, he's feeling just fine with it right now. And wild to me, Miff, I mean, this has been a slower paced game than we got in game one. We were about a kill a minute, even more so than that in game one. We slowed a little bit down here. We're 10 minutes in, 4 kills on the board. Could be 5 if Sanford Soccer can complete this, but a good Cataclysm from Aurora slows down the engage, and then the root from Cyclonespin on the back end will keep Sanford Soccer at bay for the time being. Watch out, Layers rotating around the back. Sam uses the double dash. Layers does have Blink, does have ultimate, but eyes on the Harpy instead, and there will be no re-engage.
No, purple buff invade successful this time for the Jade Dragons, so what can they do with that timer going forward? So far, Panda Cat has been benefiting mightily to the efforts of his team and finds himself still 1 level in the lead as PBM is doing exactly what he's been doing all game. He's been accosting Layers inside of the jungle. It's almost reminiscent of Season 5 support where you're just, okay, I don't really need to farm myself. I'm just going to be really annoying and make sure the enemy jungler isn't farming. And, well, Sanford Soccer now benefiting from that as well. Has about a half-level lead.
What's crazy, Miff, is my point with how slow this game has gone, is that there's a bigger gold lead than we saw at this point in game number 1. The Jade Dragons are 3,000 gold ahead of the Titans right now with 3 kills. 3 kills for 3,000 plus gold, 2,500 XP.
Well, they got this.
This has just been a passive buildup, and it is going to get worse in the gold department here for the Jade Dragons. After this Pyromancer goes down and there is no pushback from the Tartarus Titans, why don't you call it? 3.5K or so for the Jade Dragons. And this is a team, you know, we talk about their prowess in the early game. They have certainly smoothed that out. They're a great team in the mid to late game as well, feel well-rounded. But doesn't the Jade Dragons feel like a team that is multifaceted even in the early game? Yeah, you can run the enemy team down, you can pile on the kills and build your lead that way. They also feel like the type of team who can just have pressure. You don't even need all the kills, and you can get yourself 3,000-4,000 gold in the lead.
This look at the Jade Dragons is almost reminiscent of how the Camelot Kings like to play. It's all macro play. It's going for the neutral farm. It's controlling the oracles, the mid camps, going for these just guerrilla warfare inside the jungle. It's not, we're going to steal your purple, then we're going to steal your purple again and again. It's, we're going to steal your purple. Oh, you thought we were going to go to your purple? No, we're on your blue buff. No, we're going to red this time. No, we're actually on the Pyromancer. Get baited. The Jade Dragons are just keeping the Tartarus Titans guessing on the map, and you can see this gold lead is slowly continuing to climb. What are we, 4,000, 4.5? They're playing so well.
We've talked 2 minutes, and the gold lead has grown another 1,000 or so. Sanford Soccer sticks with some of the unconvention. I don't know what the proper word is in that moment, the disconvention. Who knows? But he's unconventional picks as far as build goes. He goes Crusher Myth immediately into the Shadow Steel Shuriken.
Dude,
so that is something usually reserved for the end of builds, if I'm being honest. Every once in a while you'll see this item kind of slot its way in as like one of the last items in a build. I have not seen it this early in a build in a little while.
Yeah, generally you want to build it at least after one other crit item, because 20% crit to proc your anti-heal doesn't feel so great, but Shadow Steel Shuriken has had some pretty major buffs. Used to be 20 power and like 10% attack speed, now 40 power and 15%, I believe. So, decent stat stick, but maybe not the best applicator of anti-heal at this point in the game.
Still looks like Sanford Soccer is going to go for some crit after that. So Shadow Steel Shuriken to start, and then Tier 1 regular old Shuriken. So Wind Demon maybe seems like the option here for Sanford Soccer.
This is new. This is a brand. This is going to happen in every single one of your casuals after this. I can't wait to go home and try it myself.
Yeah, you into the build here, Myth?
I like it.
Time to think about it. There's one crit from Sanford Soccer onto the Gold Fury that the Jade Dragons have pulled, and there's no pushback from the Titans. This gold lead is spiraling right now. We are 5,500 gold in the lead for the Jade Dragons. We've seen 4 total kills, a 2-kill difference, 14 minutes into this game, and the Jade Dragons are nearly 6,000 gold in the lead.
The Tartarus Titans have essentially gone cross-eyed on the map trying to figure out where the Jade Dragons are and what they're doing, and so far have not been able to get a lock on it. And take a peek at the vision. There was no way the Tartarus Titans could have known that the Jade Dragons went in. There's a sentry ward on the top left of the middle of the map near these mid-harpies. That's the path the Jade Dragons took to rotate in towards what is already sentried Gold Fury. At no point did they show themselves on the map. The Tartarus Titans, the only reason they know the Gold Fury went down was its death wail.
Yeah, you hear it screaming across the map. And you wonder, all right, so where does that... where and how does that 6,000 gold of a lead start to spread itself out for the Jade Dragons? A moment ago, you saw the gold differential charts, the net worth charts. I mean, it is evenly spread for the Jade Dragons here. I mean, everyone outside of Mike, who is like one bit of gold beneath the top earner on the Tartarus Titans, everyone from the Jade Dragons is passively ahead in the net worth chart there, except for Sanford Soccer, who is a little beneath Benji, and then you expect PBM to be a little bit further down. So it's like 1.4K gold in the lead is fine okay. 9.5 thousand gold for Panda Cat. Here he is 2,000 gold in the lead over Cyclonespin. These are
massive.
hefty leads in important areas for the Jade Dragons, but you've got to make it work. You've got to put that gold up against the task here, and the Tartarus Titans able to respond in force in the mid lane. Sanford Soccer dove on. Cyclonespin says, who needs a gold lead? I've got damage, and Sanford Soccer receives it.
Layers, though, uses Battle Hell very early on in that engagement. Could be re-engaged himself, but PBM on the chase loses out on so much HP.
Wow, PBM backs away, so this is a great response from the Tartarus Titans. This is almost Titans-esque from early in Game 1, where they just out-rotated the Jade Dragons into these certain fights, and able to do so here in the mid lane. So you get a kill onto Sanford Soccer. That helps things out. You slow him down. Starting to close up that gold gap a little bit, but right now Layers is second to last on the net worth chart, so that'll help him climb back up just a little bit, keep up with Sanford Soccer. Slight slip up here, Mifflin, but far from back breaking for the Jade Dragons, but it's exactly what the Titans need to feel a little bit more comfortable in this game moving forward.
I think that was the only transformation Paul could have made to make that fight go their way. The Ring of Spears that he stole from Final K essentially keeps San for Soccer inside what used to be the Tier 1 tower. Worth noting the Jade Dragons do strip that one away for like 5-6 extra seconds that he wouldn't have wanted, which allows everybody else from the Tartarus Titans to rotate their way in. The Jade Dragons, they were there first. They were in numbers, but the call was to disengage, and they left San for Soccer high and dry. PBM and Hurrywin hovering nearby, did not commit to try and find that peel, and that created the space for Layers to rotate in, finish off that engagement, allowed Cyclonespin to have a safe spot to land because he's just landing on Sam. The Jade Dragons may have, as you said, messed up a little bit there, but I think they've built such a wild buffer, 7,000 gold, that it doesn't super matter.
It's gotten worse. One kill and it's gotten worse for the Titans. And a massive power spike gets hit here by Herduwind, a somewhat expensive build here as far as the last couple of items. Soul Gem into Soul Reaver, and that is now online for this Discordia. If you're able to fight around Herduwind right now, which of course the Jade Dragons will want to do, Herduwind in a power position to take a fight over, as I like to say. Pyromancer stands, no Fury. The Jade Dragons have taken the last like 3 neutral objectives quietly without any pushback. So if you're a Titans fan, maybe you have to admire the fact that they are hovering over here on the right side of the map where the Dragons could make their next attack.
Yeah, desynced neutral objectives mean that it's very simple for the Tartarus Titans to realize where the Jade Dragons are headed. Pyromancer is really the only option on the board, and PBM continues to do it, just keeps bullying Layers.
Man, this is just annoying to be going up against PBM. All right, so the Titans know what's going on, but have nothing to say about it. And so the Pyromancer will end up going down, and 7,000 gold was a bit wishy-washy, now solidified. 7,000 gold in the lead are the Jade Dragons, 4,000 experience in the lead here as well. But then, Myth, I do think it's important to talk about pacing. I mean, is this the type of composition from the Titans where if you can weather the storm for another 10 minutes maybe, and you get to full build anyway, is your composition any better? And in the later, have you missed your power spike anyway?
I think that the Tartarus Titans do have pieces that scale incredibly well. Can't sleep on Paul and his ability to completely change up team fights on his own in the base stance of the Morrigan, but also Benji and his ability to completely disrupt an engagement with Descent into Madness. Even Aurora, Cataclysm being one of the best engage tools, and Stone Shield being one of the best disengage tools are all true for the Titans, but the Jade Dragons have good answers to some of these tools. If Benji is isolated inside of a fight, Final K can just drop Ring of Spears and say, all right, guys, he's in Madness, but he's stuck. Or if he's deep in the back line, you drop San for Soccer's ultimate and say, sure, he's descended, but he's kind of shredded too.
That's right. Polar Bear Mike, he's been annoying against the Titans.
Great
and
cage.
The Titans put all their pressure onto Polar Bear Mike. The kills are even. And then the Titans now, they run back the same play that they had a few moments ago. Somebody overextends. Last time it was Sam. This time it's Polar Bear Mike. Overextends. What can you do with a 4v5? The Titans can shrink up this gold lead. Numbers is a big advantage. If you're able to find a pick, the gold lead matters less. Panda Cat playing with fire. He'll buy Frost on away. And those are the slip-ups that get a team like the Titans back into the game.
Paul has been really enjoying this transformation into the Odin, and now we get to see why. That Ring of Spears is so hard for Hurrywin to deal with. Golden Apple being one of your best team fight tools just bounces off that wall every single time. If the Tartarus Titans are fighting around Paul, it's great.
Cyclonespin is here, and it's Final K maybe getting picked out. Nope. So Cyclone will use his ultimate to rotate into solo lane here as Final K has kept the pressure on Benji all lane long. But unfortunately for Cyclonespin, no chance to get a kill there on the back end. There is a pull here from the Jade Dragons. We wondered, look, you have this massive gold lead. When do you finally convert it?
It's fast.
Into something a little bit riskier. The Jade Dragons might not feel like this is all that risky, though. The Fire Giant's low. The Fire Giant's confirmed by the Jade Dragons. Panda Cat sends Aurora into the nether, and Panda Cat will send him into the grayscale screen as well. The Jade Dragons finally make the big play, and they got a big chance to push.
Every single ultimate down for the Jade Dragons. Ring of Spears can become available very shortly here, but that doesn't matter. You've got 30 seconds to play around where Aurora is just not on the map. This Tier 2 tower, it's done. Nobody here on the rotation. It's still Paul in mid. Sure, you could have Cyclonespin ult in, but that's not available just yet either. This could even be a Phoenix attempt if the Jade Dragons realize that the Tartarus Titans have not regrouped.
10 seconds on Aurora. So you have time if you're the Jade Dragons. Benji locked in solitary confinement in chaos all on his own. And the right side Phoenix goes down. The Jade Dragons, are they going to reinitiate here? Are they going to push further in to this right side? For a moment it looked like yes. On the end, looks like no, but Aurora with Cataclysm finds his way into the Jade Dragons composition. Left side split push for Cyclonespin, and he doesn't have his ultimate. That means the Jade Dragons have a great numbers advantage here anyway. Hurrywind snags a kill onto Aurora. The Jade Dragons surging forward. Cyclonespin will finally head on back to base. No Phoenix at hand, and the Jade Dragons might smell blood.
Jade Dragons trying to put a finish to it. Cyclonespin cancels his back. They're in the Titan room.
Paul is transformed, and he's in the cage. Cyclonespin is going to continue pushing down the left side. Phoenix here. The Titan just being worked on by the Jade Dragons.
50.
It's down to half HP. The Jade Dragons have found the engage, but Sanford Soccer is low. Paul has gotten his Aegis out. Cyclonespin picks up the first. What a play from the Turnabog. A double kill from Cyclonespin, and the Tartarus Titans survive.
And maybe Hurrywind could be able to turn this one around, but Lairs removes that chance, and Hurrywind in one fell swoop. Cyclonespin does it all for his team, finds the objective, rotates in, and saves the game, but it is 50% on this Titan. It is a Phoenix for Phoenix trade, but who got the more valuable Phoenix? Cyclonespin. The one furthest from the Fire Giant is always the hardest to defend.
And then you are playing with the thinnest of margins there if you're Cyclonespin.
He could have just lost.
We're wondering when he's going to go back, right? And his ultimate was like 3/4 of the way there. That has to be a call where he's saying, guys, my ult is up in like 8 seconds anyway. Either I can channel my back or I can finish off this Phoenix and come back, and maybe I'm going to be in the fight around the same time anyway. And I don't think it's up for debate. He makes the right call there. He sticks around. Hindsight, of course, 20/20, but he sticks around, gets the left side Phoenix a couple of kills, helps his team keep this game alive. That said, Miff, you do get some of that damage put in onto the Tartarus Titan. And so if the Jade Dragons regroup, push a concerted effort in there, it might be easier to finish the game here on one more push.
Still has about a minute left on this Fire Giant on 2 members of the Jade Dragons. You're not feeling great on Phoenix Siege, but maybe could still look towards some of these tier 2 towers. Having it on Final K and Panda Cat might be the ideal situation. Final K able to tank up these objectives and then resustain with Fire Giant. Panda Cat could shred, but instead it is going to be a safer play this time around for the Jade Dragon. Just kind of waiting it out. Clear out the Pyro. Gold Fury going to be spawning right when this Fire Giant wears off, so that could be where the Jade Dragons head as well. And the Tartarus Titans, I think they're happy with what they've accomplished there. Up against the Fire Giant power play, nearly 10,000 gold down the entire time in a 4 versus 5 engagement without Cyclonespin, who is the one of 2 members that has gone undying so far for the Tartarus Titans. I'd argue they do as well as you could have.
Right, that doesn't feel like a 10K differential against a Fire Giant-esque defense. You only lose your Phoenix and a little bit of health on your Titan while also getting a Phoenix. You didn't have your Hunter there for the beginning of the fight. Feels like a win for the Titans, but this is where the fallout can continue. The Jade Dragons still have the Fire Giant on a couple. They're still able to pull that gold lead a little bit further back for themselves. We're going to get the tier 2 tower. We're going to get this Gold Fury. We're going to go back and reset. Fire Giant will end now. And the timer is officially on. 1 minute till the next Fire Giant. We are 24 minutes in, so we're far away from the enhanced Fire Giant. You got 2,000 gold to spend. We will be finalizing builds here for a couple of members of the Jade Dragons, upgrading those starter items. Oboe for Panda Cat. And so those item advantages still there. I mean, that is a full item advantage for Panda Cat. A full item advantage for Fino K. Still in a great spot are the Jade Dragons, but the Tartarus Titans make a great call and keep this game a little bit more intriguing.
Here's the thing about how the gold lead is still roughly 10,000.
Right.
It is. The Jade Dragons are in a great position.
We can't be ringing. We can't be sounding all doom and gloom for the Jade Dragons
no,
just yet.
They're just fine as of right now.
You got to keep it interesting as the Titans have, but still just fine are the Jade Dragons.
Right side, Phoenix has respawned, and Sanford Soccer has been given the duty of defending this left-hand side. Does not have the same global presence that Cyclonespin does, so if it is a 1v1 and it forces a 4v4 on the opposite side, the Tartarus Titans going to have a distinct advantage going forward, but that advantage will not last much longer. This left side Phoenix is going to be respawning very shortly here, as has the Fire Giant, but the Jade Dragons, they're split up on the map. They want to deal with every issue as it comes, and the first one to look at is this left side Phoenix, and they only have 1 or 2 more fire waves to contend with, just 1 more, and they've done a great job pushing it out. That said, Tartarus Titans make note of it. They see 2 members of the Dragons on the left-hand side and immediately establish dominant vision control on the Fire Giant pit.
So now that both the Phoenixes have respawned, Myth, I mean, and it's wrong of me to ignore the towers and everything that the Jade Dragons got after the fact.
You don't have to do it.
Right, I don't have to. So the Jade Dragons were able to get a couple extra towers. Feels like, after it's all said and done, we're kind of at the same map state. Nothing got worse for the Titans, really. You know, your Phoenix is lower on the left side if you're the Jade Dragons. Your Phoenix is low on the right side if you're the Tartarus Titans. Cyclonespin is going to make the exact same play.
Doing it again.
He's going to push down the left side and ult into this fight after the fact. He's going back now. The ping from the Jade Dragons finds its way to Cyclonespin, and in those types of moments, every once in a while, you'll see the team who forced the back then pull the FG. But the Titans, not that aggressive on the objective call just yet.
Actually, very intelligent positioning from the Jade Dragons there. The second they send Sanford Soccer back to base, every single member of the Dragons backs up. They didn't know exactly where the Tartarus Titans were, so there was always the risk of, okay, we can get engaged on right here. We just lost Sanford Soccer. He has to defend. We don't know where Cyclone is either. He could ult in at any moment. All it would take is an engagement from Aurora to spell doom for the Jade Dragons at a 4 versus 5 engagement, so they reset to their own Tier 2 tower. We even saw a ping on their own Tier 2 saying, this is where we're headed. Let's wait a little bit. Let's buy some time, and then we can regroup on the Fire Giant. That said, Cyclonespin could just do it again. He is a constant threat on this left-hand side because of that global presence.
Look where he is. He's just heading right back to the left side of the map. And it's all about, you know, now just delaying things out if you're the Titans. Give Cyclonespin some time to work down the left side of this map, get that Phoenix low, and he will be able to finish it off pretty quickly as long as he's got a minion wave there with him. But
they have
the Jade Dragons are privy to this. The Jade Dragons will start up the Fire Giant. Ultimate from Sanford Soccer finds maybe the best target, and it's Benji, and the Dragons will secure the FG. Oh, the Panda Cat has taken massive damage. Paul is able to answer back with one, and the Heimdall is low. The Heimdall is out of the game. A double kill from Sanford Soccer is answered by a double kill from Paul. And this whole time,
here's Cyclone
has been pushing down the left side of the map, and he will ult back into the fight.
Cyclonespin on a tear, up against Final K and Hurrywin. Just alone here. Where's Mike?
No, Mike is gone, but not Final K. Final K leaps up and over. Mike now chasing back the back line. And it's Paul who's back in stealth, back by the Bifrost. Final K leaps up and over, and the Fire Giant only around the waist of 2 members of the Jade Dragons. Can you get the leap off onto Paul? Final K says yes. There's the stun, there's the root, there's the kill. Final K snags one onto Paul, and that is a 4 for 3. But Phoenix for the Titans and 2 Fire Giants for the Jade Dragons. Good luck deciphering that one for me, man.
Fire Giant on 2 frontliners always feels good. Having your frontliners with sustain is so nice. They can sit inside of these towers and these Phoenixes for incredibly long, but losing it on every single one of your carries means that your damage output has taken a major hit. That said, the game now simplifies that Fire Giant has been removed from the map. No longer can Cyclonespin be that global threat. No longer can he just split push and force the Jade Dragons to respond. The Dragons, it's clear, they have to group up on the left, and they need to start pushing.
Right, he can't split push because he's already gotten the objective that he was looking for on left as well. That Phoenix is gone. And so the Tartarus Titans, at least map state-wise, come out a bit ahead there, but the Jade Dragons still with that push power. And you know, at some point, if you're the Dragons, you got to take, and I think this to your point here, Miff, you got to take this fight to the Tartarus. You can't give Cyclonespin the opportunity to do that. You've got to take the fight to their side of the map. And it's a great point, and it's exactly what the Jade Dragons are looking to do here. Primal Fury gets confirmed by the Dragons. Final K and PBM, the frontliners, still with that FG buff. This one regular, enhanced will be the next Fire Giant should we get there. And it looks like, Miff, we're going to get our first look at a Tartarus Titans Phoenix defense.
And it's strong. I'm not going to mince words. It's incredibly strong. We saw how disruptive one Cthulhu can be. 2 of them inside of such a tight, enclosed space is going to be very hard for the Jade Dragons to deal with. If they do, the Tartarus Titans that is, transform into Cthulhu, that's the Jade Dragons' call to say, get out. We got to run. We can't fight into double descent into madness. So they're trying to coax out some of these cooldowns. They're trying to coax out these ultimates. Not going to push it all into this Phoenix just yet, and instead start with a Tier 2.
Final K walks forward. Half of the health missing from this Tier 2 tower. Watch out for Hurrywind. One big strike. I think that could be a pivot point in these fights. The ability to kind of individually pick off members is there for the Jade Dragons. Also means Hurrywind has to step up a bit further. And Paul could be a linchpin to this push as well on the other side.
One.
But Benji is going to take it all into his own hands. He goes big, chasing down Hurrywind, who is disrupted, to say the absolute least. But look at Final K. He's bought so much time for the rest of his team to kite backwards, and he will leap out and be out alive. Paul is transformed. There are 2 Cthulhus ripping down the mid lane, and there is no chance for Hurrywind to survive through that. Final K right back into the fray. Sanford Soccer has to dash his way out here as well. Over on the left-hand side, Panda Cat could
Titans
rotate
healthy.
in. behind this fight. Instead, PandaCat decides to head back to base. This is a lost cause. We are not winning this engagement. And Mike will run away. Final K will leap away. And the Tartarus Titans make their way down mid.
Every single ultimate down inside of this one, but it was not all that expensive for the Tartarus Titans, all incredibly healthy. On a push attempt here, have a ton of relics still available, but instead, that's a reset. Tier 2 tower is all they want. That's all they came for. They were trying to stop the push of the Jade Dragons, and they're successful this time around. But the Jade Dragons on their own end have got a couple of boons in their favor. That left side Phoenix going to be respawning very shortly. But if the plan was run away from the Descent into Madness, clearly does not work. Hurrywin was not allowed to walk, and then he had to do it twice. Couldn't happen.
Got to do it a second time. Hurrywin's still not full build. I stand corrected. Charon's Coin will be the final selection. Yeah, so you think that the heavy defense Cthulhu is concerning for Hurrywin? He has got Obshard into Charon's Coin after a Soul Reaver. And so there is a lot of damage prioritized against this Cthulhu and also Paul when he transforms into the Cthulhu. How about the grit from the Tartarus Titans? You have been 8K down in this game since like the 15-minute mark, and you have made everything the opposite of easy for the Jade Dragons. Difficult, by the way, Myth, is the opposite of easy. And
That's
the Jade
true.
Dragons have not had it easy here in game number 2, despite having a massive gold lead throughout most of this game. And it just feels like this one's on a knife edge. And this might be the first FG where the Titans feel the most comfortable pushing out. You have Cyclonespin on this side of the map, so you're going to be fully stocked up. When you have Cyclone here, you're not relegating your team to a 4v5 while you get the Phoenix. You're here to contest.
I think the call has to shift for the Jade Dragons. They can't run away from these Cthulhus, so instead, utilize your composition to shut down at least one of them. PandaCat has a great build for going towards these tanks. Hurrywin, with all that penetration that you highlighted earlier, is going to be incredibly strong up against a Cthulhu, and when you have a Nemesis to strip away all that defense,
the tools are there.
It's all there. But you're right. Taking a peek at these damage charts, Where's PandaCat been? He hasn't been split pushing like Cyclonespin has. He's just been struggling mightily to find some damage.
Got to get involved with the way that this build has gone.
He's doing it again.
Dominance. And you're right, Myth. It is a look at a split push for Cyclonespin. Well, he'll head on back for his purple buff. That means the Jade Dragons eyes on the FG. At the very least, you have to get the enhanced fire.
That's one.
You cannot allow this one to be stolen away if you're the Jade Dragons. Oh, but look at Sam for soccer. No chance for the Nemesis. The Tartarus Titans have put him down. And what an opening pick here to this fight.
I can't believe he ults the layers. Like, he just goes up into the air, and Benji is allowed to keep doing what he's been doing, just tearing up the entirety of the Dragons.
Oh my god, and it's huge from Paul. He's got both backliners locked down underneath the tier 2 tower. PandaCat's got to ult away. The Jade Dragons have not felt comfort in about 23 minutes of game time. The Tartarus Titans have run them over.
They have, and the Tartarus Titans are still healthy. Meanwhile, on the left-hand side, you don't win those, Mike. Layers puts them down. That's 2 for none in favor of the Titans, and they've got so much time now to work with. 33 minutes into the game, every single one of your deaths are going to matter. 20 seconds left on Sam, and an entire minute on this RDO. The Tartarus Titans, for the first time, might have a look at this Fire Giant.
Myth. It's a tale as old as time, isn't it? Morgan plus Cthulhu on the same team. I mean,
gross.
That is the combo that you think of when you think of Morgan. What's the biggest thing I can also throw on the map? And it does damage. I mean, look at. We say PandaCat's got to get involved. Hurrywin's got to get involved. How are you going to do that when Paul is running you down into your tier 2 tower? And this is the most anticlimactic way the enhanced fire giant could go down, unless you're a Titans player or fan. That is clean.
You're loving that
from the Titan. Yeah, you're loving nobody from the Jade Dragons being on the right side of the map, and so it is enhanced fire giant on 5 of the Tartarus Titans. One more push could send us to game 3.
The target selection is still wild to me that Sam for Soccer says, all right, Layers, you're deep. I'm going to try and shut you down. Sure, you've got a great crit build on this Nemesis, so if you land 2 or 3 lucky crits in a row, you're probably removing this Kamazats from the map immediately. But you got to go for the guaranteed plays when you're playing on a knife's edge like this. You got to set up for the rest of your team. Had he just used the Nemesis ultimate onto Benji, Benji would have to put a little bit more respect towards the rest of the Jade Dragons. Instead, he ults onto Layers, and Layers says, word, I'm a bat, I'm out of hell, I'm leaving, I'm going to go solo your support in like 20 seconds. You don't know it yet, you're dead too. And that's all he had to do. All Layers had to do, he's the difference maker inside of that fight, ignoring Benji, ignoring Paul, and how could you? They're giant Cthulhus. Layers absorbs every cooldown from the Jade Dragons that is relevant in that engagement, and the only thing he has to do to find the value is press his 4 key and disengage. Simple. for the new jungler.
Jade Dragons reeling maybe is the right word here at this point in this game. This game, as far as gold and experience, all the measurables was in your control, but by the time teamfight time rolled around, that's when the two Cthulhu composition took over for the Tartarus Titans. Panda Cat second to last on the damage charts, and that is just not a slight at Panda Cat, but I think that's a good magnifying glass on exactly how the Titans have gotten this game real close to a win. You have just kept this Heimdall out of the conversation from minute one. And Sanford Soccer is not far behind at 8,700 damage instead of 8,400. Cyclonespin, you've given him the bailout because he's been split pushing for a bit of these fights. Just the two shredders, a couple of the shredders on the Jade Dragons have they've just not been able to get involved onto these fights. A couple power pots, Mifflin waiting, one of them for Paul. He is waiting for the right moment to use that. You see that get popped, you got to imagine the Titans looking for this Phoenix Siege in just a few moments.
Layers has Blink and Elixir of Power to his name as well, and with all the damage inside of his build, Hurrywind's got to be worried about what this Camazotz is capable of doing. The Jade Dragons need to be worried about the immediate threat, the one standing directly on the Phoenix line. 27,000 damage from Benji, who has gone uncontested in these team fights. When he goes into the ultimate, the Jade Dragons run, and they die with their backs exposed.
All right, you got to pile all of this lockdown onto the Cthulhus. Maybe Myth. We were wondering how the Titans Phoenix defense looked about 10 minutes ago. Now you're wondering how the Jade Dragons looks. I mean, maybe you're hoping that you can funnel in a couple of these priority targets. This is actually a big moment if this Phoenix is able to get taken out by the Jade Dragons. Minion wave there on right. Cyclonespin rotates in and saves it. That is huge. And he has the ability to get back into this fight later on if a fight does break out. But I'm not sure it will. That is the lowest I've ever seen a Phoenix. While it's still on the map, you can really get close and maybe see a pixel of HP. A small moment that actually makes a big difference in this game.
45 seconds left on the enhanced Fire Giant of the Tartarus Titans. They are hesitant to engage inside of the Phoenix. No poke really on the bird either. It's been real slow going, and Benji starts.
Benji on to Hurrywind. We have seen this story often all throughout this game. Panda Cat returning some auto attacks onto Benji. Ring of Spears.
He's burning.
It is on out. Left side Phoenix not looked at, but Sanford Soccer sure has been. Lots of HP missing from this Cthulhu in onto the front line, but now Paul is transformed. The second win in the fight is here, and its name is Paul. The Jade Dragons have to back up into the Titan room. Lots spent, but it is a Phoenix that goes down.
The Dragons maintain their Titan, and now the Tartarus Titans, having lost two of their most important team fight tools, need to be on the retreat. Panda Cat still has the ultimate available to close gap. Layers still has his if he wants to re-engage, but I think they've created enough space. The Tartarus Titans, like bandits in the night, strip away the left side Phoenix and walk out. There's nothing the Jade Dragons can do in return.
I mean, this is just, you watch these fights from Benji or Paul's perspective. The Cthulhu ults, in every single time in the front of the camera, there are two people, Hurrywind and Panda Cat. They are at the feet of these giant Cthulhus time and time and time again, and they haven't been able to say much about it. And so now the left side Phoenix finally gone, doesn't require a split push from Cyclonespin. No more enhanced Fire Giant around the waist of the Tartarus Titans, so they chose that engagement well. And this myth becomes the most important fight of this game, especially consider this. If the Titans, if it was their left side Phoenix that's down, you have Cyclonespin who's able to split push it, rotate in. You've got Fire Minion waves building up on the left side of the map now if you're the Jade Dragons. You've got to fight or not fight. FineOK may have made that decision for you if he's not able to sustain up a little further.
And he's got no healing to his name. Maybe PBM if he's able to get involved, but that is conditional healing. FineOK going to be permanently weakened for this engagement unless he heads back to base. Someone has to. I mean, the Fire Minions are already inside the Titan room, essentially.
Is this just free for the Tartarus Titans? The enhanced Fire Giant has started up. Polar Bear Mike is in range. Hurrywin, Panda Cat close by as well, but there will be no attempt. And the Jade Dragons looking down the barrel of a 5-strong enhanced Fire Giant push, where the Tartarus Titans might not give them the chance to defend under their Phoenix. They have gotten both actives out of Hurrywin. It's a fantastic strike. And then some range damage.
Layers
takes the ultimate from Sanford Soccer as well. The pushback.
Is this
the
turn?
It's here, and it is Swift. Benji separating out this engagement. Sanford
Sam!
Soccer. Oh, he doesn't get the kill on the Layers. Instead, it's Cyclonespin who melts down Polar Bear Mike.
And now it's all about the Cthulhus. It's been the story the entire time. Benji separating this fight.
Oh, the cage from FineOK. It's locked to roar right where he is. The Phantom is massive, though. How about the second wind on this fight from the Tartarus Titans? Double dash out from Sanford Soccer keeps us where we are. The carry's still on the map. That's more than you've been able to say for the last couple of fights from the Jade Dragons. And with bated breath, the Jade Dragons wait under their right side Phoenix.
Titan already dropped down to about half thanks to those fire minions on the left-hand side, and now the right Phoenix is exposed. It's just Hurry wins.
Titans grouping up. They've got 5. The Jade Dragons only have 4. Polar Bear Mike 30 seconds away. Strife through. Benji
In?
dashes on in, but Benji does not have his ultimate. Does have Thorns. That gets used. Final K alone will bird bomb out and away. Will he be rooted in place? Will he be stunned in place? Will he die? Yes, he will. Cyclonespin's got that one. Sanford Soccer's got to go big. He puts the ultimate
Where'd
on
he go?
Benji. He is deleted. The Cyclonespin's got the double kill. We are 41 minutes into this game, and Cyclonespin put the team on his back. He will push us onto a game 3.
The Tartarus Titans find the win on the shoulders of giants. 2 massive Cthulhus are the only reason they find a win this time around. Sure, give some credit to the split push with the team fights where just 2 men doing it all for the Tartarus Titans.
My goodness. Yeah, 1 Cthulhu's annoying to deal with. 2 Cthulhu's.
One of them's got to get banned.
One of them's gotta, right? If you're gonna play against Cthulhu, you gotta consider taking Morgan off the table. If Morgan is not gonna get banned, you gotta take Cthulhu off the table. Look, think back. This is a 41-minute game, so I know it's
Dragons
difficult
were
to think.
controlling it.
From start, they had like 3 kills and they were like 7,000 gold in the lead. And we're thinking, all right, this is a slow burn, but the Dragons are gonna take this one 2-0.
Nope.
Anything but. We go 41 minutes in game number 2. And wouldn't you guess it, the Tartarus Titans push us to a game 3, the conclusion of this set, right after this.
I gave up dabbing for Lynn.
Cool. No more dabbing for final. He looked at me and said, I'm going to be on that stage next year. I'm going to become a world champion.
Shop.smiteproleague.com is the place to go if you want to get any of your SPL merchandise, brought to you by our friends over at Insight Apparel, the most important thing that's now, and one of the biggest things that we've been talking about a lot, and for good reason. I mean, they look great. The new joggers and mouse pads are available for you, so if you want to pick one of those up for your favorite team, any of them, available one for each, or one logo for each of the teams on the joggers, and a custom mouse pad for each and every one of those teams. So whichever team is your favorite, go ahead and pick yourself up one of each, or you can pick up however many of all of them that you want to. Whatever you want to do with yours. If you want to buy a bunch of joggers, bouncer mouse pads, you know what? Go for it. Shop.smiteproleague.com. Thanks to our friends again at Inside Apparel for all of that and anything else that you may want to get besides those. But getting ready to go into game number 3, man, that was I'm not going to say hard to watch in the sense of, man, that was like a brutal one to watch. That was hard to watch because Cthulhu is just so dangerous to go up against. It's not just like you as the player playing those guys have a hard time kind of communicating. Even the enemy team in those battles, it's just like, what do you do when 2 of these beasts are just W-king at you consistently?
You remember when the Dragons were up like 6K?
It was more than 6, I thought.
It was a lot. Like, I think they made it to 10. Yeah, they were up by a whole lot, and then not
No.
real fast.
And
It is
matter.
exactly what it came down to. I mean, we looked at it, and even despite, I mean, even right here, yes, fighting at like an 8K deficit, things like that, fighting at a 10K deficit here, it's just these wild team fights that are so good for the Titans. It's exactly what we had highlighted on the desk going into it. Not just
That's
2
terrifying.
Cthulhus, although 2 Cthulhus definitely caused a lot of trouble, is any transformation for ball, any engagement from the Titans was just really good. And we got to see something, I think, really, really great from Cyclonespin and Layers as well. Layers got to do a ton of damage several times where we got to see him either survive a lot of burst or deal a lot of burst. But I have to give Cyclonespin the props because even though it's not the flashiest job in the world, he got the left Phoenix several times throughout the game, then would ult over. There was a point where I think the Dragons were running into the Titan room for the Titans. He's up there, knocks out the Phoenix, then ults back instead of trying to get any back off. It's going to be much quicker to do that, and gets a double kill. Things like that that really made him feel very impactful throughout the entirety of the map, the entirety of the game. He goes 6-1-5 and looks really good. Benji literally only died once, and it was at the very end, and it was absolutely worthwhile for him to go down. That was just a phenomenal team fight draft from the Titans, and it made it very difficult, no matter what kind of lead you have for the Dragons.
And it's one of the reasons we're seeing this Cthulhu band away. I'm not going to say all the time, but maybe after this one, a 36,000, nearly 37,000 damage game out of Benji on his Cthulhu. Paul not quite putting up the same exact level of numbers, but when he did go into that ultimate, I'm just saying, I'm still kind of shivering from that ultimate. You know, we got to see it from down the lane in that perspective with the Cthulhus. They were in sync on a couple of those attacks. That might be the most terrifying thing I've seen in Smite, is 2 Cthulhus both slamming the same ability same time, and it literally covers the entire lane. How do you deal with that? Well, maybe you just go ahead and ban it, or you pick it for yourself here. Game number 3 about to be underway between these 2 teams. Well, it's both of them now tied at a 1-1. And there's a lot of discussion in game 1 about maybe we ban away the Nike, maybe we pick the Nike this way. And now maybe the conversation is kind of swinging over towards this Cthulhu. Cyclonespin, though we do have to give him some of the credit in this game, getting those big split pushes early, keeping that Phoenix exposed for the Jade Dragons that you were talking about earlier, and being able to make a high impact by being able to just instantly rotate right back over to these fights. That global ultimate so potent for him. And we see a change up here in game number 3 for the Jade Dragons up against there. Let's hop right into picks and bans for that 3rd game and see what all happens in picks and bans.
I'm excited to see, again, the transition for this. Ullr, Yemoja, Khepri was the Titans last time. Ullr, Yemoja. Artio was the first time. I think they're not worried too much about the Artio. They were able to handle it pretty well this last time. Letting Odin Artio through might have actually been better for them.
Might have just been a bait.
Because, yeah, making sure the Dragons got both made it feel like both of them weren't able to do quite as much. And then again, early on, they were doing just fine. It was just a couple of slip-ups, good team fights from the Titans that made it so much more difficult for the Dragons throughout the duration of that. They banned the Erlong Shin, the Sylvanas, and the Terra on the Dragons, and they've gone for the Sylvanas Terra both times. I'm not going to be surprised if we see either the Morgan or Cthulhu make their way up there.
I imagine those are 2 guys that might be within that first pick / first man category. And that's always the beauty here of game 3s. Usually in 5-game sets where you get to see it really get into the super nitty gritty, but at least in these 3-game sets, when you get to this 3rd game, you do see some shakeups in the picks and bans that go away from some of the meta and more towards the targeted ones. But even still, we are seeing a lot of the same normalcies here. Erlong Shen and Khepri from the Jade Dragons, Ullr and Yemoja out of the Tartarus Titans banned away. Still 1 more ban a pop from them, and I would not be surprised if we see this Cthulhu or Morgan at least get kind of split here. At least there's no way in any world that one team should get both of those gods again. I think ever from this point onward. It used to be, and I know I heard Dave bring it up in the cast. When you think of Morgan, who do you think of? My first initial thought was Morgan and Hunbots. Double Fear No Evil might have been one of the most potent.
No Evil's pretty sick.
Might have been one of the most potent CC combos in the game. But after watching that, I think I'm moving away from the Morgan Hunbats and saying Morgan Cthulhu might be the new and strong standing combo between them. Got to see this taken away. Titans will actually ban away the Odin here for their third and final ban of the first phase of bans. Well, option goes over towards the Dragons. Curious what they're going to throw away here.
A lot of the Titans' problems that they had early on, and admittedly some of the problems, they didn't exist a lot in the late game, but the ones that did were in the form of Fine OK and this Odin. He was able to do a lot to stabilize either his team. I mean, there's that point where it was, what, a 4-for-3 trade, where it only goes that way because of Fine OK's play and the damage that he was able to deal. So it makes sense to try and limit it, plus he's just been a potent pick. Slow that down, give Benji a little bit more of an easier time over there in the solo lane. It'll make things a little bit better for them. It's not surprising to see him go back to Geb. With the Morgan banned away, it will change up some things for Paul, and so we might not get Morgan Cthulhu, although we could still see Cthulhu plus some other phenomenal mid laner. Tiamat, Raijin, and the like are all still available.
Yeah, where's Tiamat been? Because she's been vastly absent in the last few sets that we have seen. Not many teams have really been banning her away. Not many teams have been picking her up either. But we'll be RDO for the Jade Dragons after this Geb lock-in for the Tartarus Titans. And it was the Morgan banned away as that third selection for the Jade Dragons. So we will not see the double of anything this time around. The Morgan will not go back to Paul. Morgan will not even go to Hurrywin. They're just going to make sure and take it off the table entirely. So that maybe that now kind of opens the question of, is that Cthulhu that valuable that the Cthulhu 2 was the option that made him so much stronger, or is that individual power of the Cthulhu something that could maybe be warranted here for the Titans to pick up after this RDO Sylvanas comp?
I think individual power, like Benji was 2-0-10, regardless of whether or not Paul was going to be helping him. I think you maybe take those numbers and dial them back slightly if he's alone, but I think Geb Cthulhu is still a really, really powerful frontline for them. And he's going to be going up against RDO. This is actually where Cerberus typically comes into the equation, just good at dealing with the healing. Plus, he's going to be solid up against the Sylvanas as well for the team fights. Like, I feel like he is maybe one of the fastest. Like, I want him here, or else he's going to be banned, because it feels like he's already just a strong pick up against what the Dragons have locked in.
Yeah, I'm surprised we don't actually see the Cerberus. He's been widely absent too, alongside Tiamat. But it will be Nike picked up by the Tartarus Titans. Could be going over towards solo. Could. Still flex in jungle, so we have to keep our bets open towards that possibility. The Titans, they have one more pick here before the Dragons have their third pick, and we jump into the second phase of bans. They've got some of this front line established with the Geb, the Nike. They got their set picked up here. And I'm not going to say that this is going to the jungle we've been seeing, and mostly on Cyclone at the Tartarus Titans. We saw this at ADC earlier on, so maybe this does round out the duel late for the Tartarus Titans.
Yeah, it's the big question marks, and that's the glory of it, right? Now when you go into the bans, you don't know whether or not you need to focus down the jungle. You don't know if you need to focus down the carry. Good news is you can easily focus down mid, although we've also seen set mid. Not a lot recently, but
not recent,
it
but
is still
hey.
something that you could do, I guess. And Paul was one of the ones who was playing it. He played it pretty damn well last year, so it is something to keep your eyes open. I think the Dragons, as of right now, as much as I like Set and Nike, they definitely have, more volatility in their playstyle as of what we've seen lately. Whereas RDO, Sylvanas, Susano, despite actually a lot of the numbers, at least for Sylvanas and RDO, maybe not leaning as heavily for them, it's a really, really strong, solid top 3 for the Dragons there. And I'm excited for this.
Susano, who's been banned away from Sanford Soccer in the second round of bans, both in Game 1 and Game 2, finally he'll decide to go ahead and grab something before that second round of bans when he still has the opportunity to grab one of those top picks to him. It's been between that and the Hun Bat. So we'll see what the Titans change up in their second round of bans. Jade Dragons will take Raijin off the table right away. So maybe we do just see a bunch of shots at the mid lane here, because neither mid laner, to our knowledge at least, have been locked in. You brought back up the set mid, and now I'm kind of just thinking, we saw it way earlier this morning with SCC, but that was SCC. They always do some fun nonsense. It's always Benny Q. You never know what to expect from him. But here in the SPL, we haven't seen that set mid in such a long time. Now you got it lingering in the back of my mind that this might even be a potential possibility. But it is Raijin and Morgan Le Fay banned away now here by the Tartarus Titans. 2 more bans to go, 1 for each of these teams.
This is where things get a little more convoluted. Soul has been, despite losing, I think that was in Game 1, Still something that both Herwin play a lot, and we saw Paul do really well with earlier. I also think, like, it's been a while, and I don't know that he's going to be at the top of the list, but, like, Giannis is still really good when Herwin plays it. Maybe not something that I expect to see anytime soon, but it's available, and considering all the mages that we just had taken down, you've got to start reaching a little deeper into your pockets, and for Hurry, we've seen him play about 3 or 4 of these. Yeah, he's only got so many. That was actually, like, I feel really good about this.
There you go. That's a sick call there by Gormizer. Bringing it back out was one of their most banned gods against this team back in, like, Phase 1 and jumping kind of into Phase 2. Was this Giannis for Hurry win? It was a guy that he really had a breakout performance here in Season 8, so seeing him go right back onto it, a little bit of nostalgia for those who have been tuning around for a little while here in this season. But that does leave the Tartarus Titans with their final 2 picks. Aphrodite
I'm
is...
glad I stopped all of my mid predictions at the Giannis, because I 9 times out of 10 never would have guessed that.
If this
I had
was
like 7 other mages in my mind.
If this was like Dardes, maybe. But Paul Aphrodite is not the bet that I would have gone with. This is not the mid laner I would have seen towards. It does give them a little bit of healing to kind of go up and match this Sylvanas Artio, but noted this is very much single targeted healing by the Afro, where the other two do have some more of the AoE team-wide style healing.
But I do like, it's one of the things to factor in. You also have this immunity that you're going to be bringing with the Aphrodite, as well as, surprisingly, a lot of damage. It's actually kind of weird how much she is able to bring. And it makes things fun here. When you look at the immunity, you're looking at safety from a Sylvanas pull in the event somebody gets pulled out of there, or being able to immune out of the cripple field, get away from this RDO. Make things a little more interesting for them. I like the healing. It's going to put a lot of focus onto Paul, but Paul's done a good job of staying safe. I mean, I'm pretty sure, except for players that joined like later in the year, Paul has like the least amount of deaths so far this year. And so it's things like that that tend to make me hopeful for this Aphrodite.
These guys really love messing us with this Charybdis hover that they've done now. What, 3 games in a row they've hovered it, and every single time I somewhat hold my breath, like maybe, just maybe they'll lock it in, but nope, does not get locked in. It'll be Ho-Yi as a final pick.
Zatman will lock it in if they're winning and they're up a game.
Okay. Well, neither of these are Zatman, and neither of them are fully up a game, so
it's
we
not
will
getting
not
locked
see
in.
it. Okay, good call. Maybe so maybe we see it potentially with the Leviathans later on in the week. Maybe something to look forward to. But they
they're playing the Titans. Probably not.
Maybe. You never know. You never know with these guys. One thing I did also not expect here was Achilles as a 5th pick by the Tartarus Titans. A couple of out there picks for both of them. I think the only other time we've seen Achilles so far in the last couple of phases was when PBM played up against the Scarabs last time, and he played at support. But with Geb, Nike, Achilles, I'm going to be honest, Cora, I have absolutely no idea where any of these picks are going. I'm going to safely say Geb support, but then it begs that question, I assume Achilles jungle then, with Nike in the solo?
Yeah, that feels comfortable. I mean, you got an execute all around. You've got good stun set up there. Achilles with an Aphrodite feels really solid. Cyclone's going to be set on the other side of the map, or at least I kind of hope that he is on the other side of the map. It's going to be an interesting draft from the Titans. It's definitely unorthodox, but realistically, it's got a very solid front line with Achilles, Nike, and Geb. You've got really tanky targets at the very forefront of the fight, plus a lot of single target healing. I mean, no matter who you are going to be focusing on for this Aphrodite, everybody, admittedly going to be diving. It might be hard to keep your link going for yourself, but you are going to have a lot of healing that is potent, plus the Geb shields is a lot of safety.
What an unorthodox draft coming out of the Tartarus Titans in Game 3. Will it be enough to get them the win? Let's find out in Game number 3.
One final game stands between these two teams, the Titans and the Dragons, brawling it out. Remember, ever so important to get to those top 2 spots, to pick the groups for one another's teams. That said, Cyclonespin this morning said, look, you're going to have to play everyone anyway. All the teams in the league are good, but you'd love to have the option here. And a Game 3 win over one team or the other here in this one will make your life easier if you're the Dragons or the Titans in getting to that spot. How about some fun here out of the mid lane here, Mifflin? Paul grabs the Aphrodite, and Hurrywind back on the Giannis pick that tore the league apart at the beginning of Season 8.
Paul certainly no stranger to the healer, and with this composition, legitimately, not a single bad heal target, not a single bad kiss target, I should say, for Paul. Every singular member of the Tartarus Titans is going to be playing in your face. Yeah, just all of them making kissy sounds in your face. Aurora, Cyclonespin, Benji, Layers, all melee-focused picks. All of them going to be decent initiators as well, and all of them benefit from that additional safety net that is Paul out of the mid. But with that said, that means there's only one guy you're really trying to shut down inside of every single one of these team fights. Paul puts a target on his back, and it's pretty easy to close the gap on that target when Hurrywin's playing one of his signature picks, Giannis, not only affording himself mobility, and as it stands, the only god in the game that can walk through walls until we see a new one come out pretty soon here. I think that the Jade Dragons have got some pretty nice dive.
I do think so as well. It feels like Hurrywind is poised. Poised, maybe not the right word, in a position where a big game 3 is over the horizon. It feels like both the Jade Dragons and the Titans really. No strangers to these back and forth, long, grueling games. Game 1 is mid to upper 30 minutes. Game 2 goes 41 minutes. So often don't we see Game 3 be like a 25-minute, like one team just like crushes the other one. So I will admit, one way or the other, I wouldn't be surprised if that's the way that this one could end up. And maybe there's a higher potential with that with Sam for Soccer on this Susano, because we've seen this pick a couple of times for a while. Sam's Mercury was the favorite band of the league. Has started to become the Susano a little bit more often here. And a chance for first blood around the corner. Sam has an idea where Layers is. Layers is blown right by him, but Sam will pull him right back in. Layers happy to take this trade, though. Just 1v1 there. No high threat in the 1v1 for first blood, but Hurrywind could make things interesting with a rotation and cooldowns coming back from Sam for Soccer. Will only be able to teleport to the Harpy.
Pull's
There's damage in from Hurrywind. There's the pull. On to Layers. The last bit of damage misses, but Hurrywind gonna speed himself forward. Portal on the other side. Layers goes down, and it's the Giannis for Hurrywind on first blood.
That was a death of 1,000 cuts on the Layers, man. He
while.
takes 2 separate full engagements up to Sam for Soccer. Hurrywind able to use his full ability rotation twice as well. And at the end of the day, what does it net for the Jade Dragons? Easiest blue buff in Beta Sam for Soccer's life. No opposition from Benji and Layers just now. Starting to walk himself out of base. That's a good start for the Dragons, and I think you're right to highlight the Susano pick, not just for Sam, but for the league at large. I think that was an 86% win rate or something wild along those with 7 picks inside of the SPL. This god is consistent, and he really is thriving at 8.9.
Sam for Soccer maybe at the forefront of that thriving. And a great start now for the Jade Dragons to get the assist there. You get Hurrywind, a kill under his pocket. And so this Giannis, I say, poised for a good game. Well, you started off well, and it's a pure skill type champion. You know, the through space and times, those hit.
Hard.
You're turning these fights around. Unstable vortex. You could argue. I don't even think there's really an argument. It's easier to hit maybe than it was before. But Hurrywind's still got to make it work, especially against the undying love of Paul. That'll definitely throw a bit of a wrench in the mix in some of these team fights. I think worth having a conversation though, Mifflin. You know, we've mentioned the Susano. Haven't seen Achilles out of the jungle at all, maybe, in Season 8. We saw it support once for PBM. What are expectations here? We saw Warrior jungle meta for a little while. You imagine it kind of follows that trend?
This is a console special, man. I've played against Layers, Achilles,
wheelhouse.
jungle plenty. You've got great early game presence. Your ganks are legitimately incredibly strong. I mean, you blink in, you find the stun, you set up for your team, you've got great chase down, someone gets dropped low, you've got an execute, or if you just want another way to chase down, utilize that ultimate just to close gap and deal a little bit of additional damage. And if you so choose, and Layers has this opportunity ahead of him, can sacrifice a little bit of power inside of the build and just kind of lean on his kit for it. Means that he can have a little bit more survivability going forward as well. But as it stands, seems to me he's going for standard assassin-style build. It could be a crusher in that first slot.
Sam goes back in. Sam goes back in here. Miff went on to Benji, and that means Benji can jump back in.
Damage.
Sam does well, though. Sends damage back Benji's way. But it's a well-executed jump in all by maybe a single pixel. Benji does not get hit by the through space.
Oh, no!
Beats time out, and Mike doesn't miss right into the portal. It's huge from the Jade
Hurry
Dragons.
whipped?
Benji ends up going down, a little bit more difficult than the Jade Dragons maybe needed to make it. Maybe Hurrywind needed to make it, but the kill comes in nonetheless.
Layers trying to confirm himself a blue buff. Gets horrific. Final case on him.
He's got no mana. 0 mana from Layers. You're relying on the 200
You're done.
HP in your back pocket. And Final K's got a whole lot more than that. The Jade Dragons show up in force on right, and they'll put down 2 kills.
That was just greedy from Layers to try and confirm himself. That blue buff has 2 members barreling down his way, and Aurora tries to turn the fight. Good
big
CC.
damage from Hurrywind. Paul can walk forward here. Sam for Soccer doesn't have his ult. Hurrywind doesn't either. Portal just to secure the escape. And already, Miff, there are some fireworks brewing. A lot of it around Hurrywind on this Giannis. That through space and time closed that gap so quickly over in the solo lane. And I think the patience for Mike really wins the day there. Benji uses those beads, assuming the pull is coming in, and Mike reads it well.
Speaking of assumptions, I had assumed that the majority of the action would be inside of the duo lane with Cyclonespin playing set, a very aggressive early game pick, but it seems like an active decision from the Jade Dragons to fight opposite of Cyclonespin. They don't want to play around this set who's already hit a massive power spike, already level 7 on this assassin with Jotun's Wrath to his name. So instead, play around the right-hand side, ignore this set, and wait till the late game phase where he's going to struggle not being a hunter.
Good stun onto PBM from Layers. Execute threshold
Goodness.
reached, but promptly goes by the wayside as Mike will top, not his health bar off, but go above that execution threshold. So Layers able to get some damage in there onto Mike, but he will back off. Big power spike as well, though, Miff. You talk about this support pick for PBM. Lotus Crown far and away the first item locked in for this Sylvanas. Those wisps just make your team feel so tanky once Lotus Crown is in there.
Yeah, wisps give your team protection and healing. And then
Anyway.
you add Lotus Crown, you get more protections going forward. So PBM going to be affording his team a lot inside of these team fights. I'd argue, legitimately up against Sylvanas, you might just want to pick up an Ankh just so you can try and strip away some of that protections, remove the defense, take a percentage more damage inside of this engagement, and remove some of that healing. So we'll see if the Tartarus Titans elect to go that path as Hurrywind takes a fair bit of damage inside of mid, forced to use that ultimate defensively.
So he is at least able to stay alive. On one side of the map, blue buff invade is good for the Jade Dragons. Final K Sanford Soccer take that one. Then a three-way split of the Dragons red buff by the Tartarus Titans after forcing Hurrywind away. They'll also get, they being the Titans, will also get the Greater Scorpion here on left. So both Greater Scorpions get taken. Then you're looking at a Gold Fury spawning here in just a little bit of time. Maybe the best Hurrywind can do there, though, Miff. I mean, you know your team, your jungler, they're putting pressure on right. You just need to survive.
This is a very close pace to what we saw in Game 2. Low kill count comparatively to Game 1, but still nearly
Gold
a
lead for the
2,000 gold
Dragons.
lead
Oh,
for the
no.
Jade Dragons.
Oh,
Yeah.
no, Miff.
Oh, but the Jade
We're
Dragons
going
lost.
40.
Oh no! You know, I'd welcome a 40-minute game here,
That's
man. As considering how back and forth the last one
It's been
was,
fun.
it's just a treat to
A
watch.
lot of fun watching these two teams play, though minus the two Cthulhus, I think the team fighting maybe a little bit more straightforward here for the
Agreed.
Jade Dragons. Panicat wasn't able to get involved in Game 1. The Heimdall was just kept out of those fights. Mike off to a good start here. Oh, the pull of the combo, it's all there. But Layers will use his ultimate to get out, but Sanford Soccer
Dash
ever so
away?
patient. He leaves, he dashes out, and Layers will not die. Very close to it was the Achilles. But no pick for the Jade Dragons. You got 99.9% of a pick. But that last 0.1% is all that matters, and the Jade Dragons don't get it.
Poor CC chain there. Sanford Soccer stacks his pool onto PBM's pool, so doesn't get any value from it. Maybe assumes that Sylvanas' dot damage would have been enough to finish off Layers, who I think survives with sub 30 HP there, so fair assumption from Sanford Soccer. But had they utilized that CC chain just a little bit more effectively, had Sanford Soccer just dashed in aggressively, would have put himself in slightly more poor positioning, but likely would have finished the kill by that same note. But no reason to take those risks when the Jade Dragons are already nursing themselves a nice little lead 9 minutes in.
Well, I think but if you're the Dragons or one of their fans, you have to be happy with the pace that Sam has at least set, right? When you see the Susana, you want Sam to be active, you want him to be active early, and you want him to be active often. That's what Sanford Soccer has done here so far, and a chance to continue to do so. After the red buff invade by the Tartarus Titans, Sanford Soccer stunned and some tick damage is going to make its way in there by Paul. That is half of Sam's health that's missing on a kiss, and then the little birdies ticking him on down. So good disengage there from the Titans when it felt like the Jade Dragons might have an opening to pick a fight.
Yeah, I think that was also skewer from Cyclonespin into Sanford Soccer.
Yeah.
Birds were doing that on their own. Paul's too much of a threat already, especially considering he's gone for a little bit more utility inside of the build. Going down that helmet tree already, has the Chronos Pendant. He's here to heal, and he's here to ult, and he's trying to do it often.
Pandacat saw Aurora behind him. We'll go up and over, and no threat there from Aurora. No blink online, but there is a Cataclysm. And so Mike opts for something a little bit different here, Mifflin. Trying to pull the enemies into you. You have the ability to set up a fight that way. Aurora goes blink plus Cataclysm. That's a very potent combination. Whereas Mike opts for this shell first and foremost, so the positioning is going to have to be a little bit more immediate from the Sylvanas.
I think maybe the most interesting relic selection so far this game has got to be Final K going towards that horrific inside of the first slot up against Benji. You got to think he doesn't expect to have too much kill potential up against the Nike, so more so keeping his eyes towards these early rotations. If he were saying, all right, late game team fight, horrific emblem feels pretty good, he wouldn't have gone it inside of that first slot. I think Final K is trying to find a rotation out of lane very shortly.
Sanford Soccer pinged out by the Tartarus Titans. This has been the popular rotation by Sam. He's not going to turn his eyes towards the Pyromancer. No way he does this alone, but luckily Sam's got backup, and it's Final K and Hurrywind sending some damage towards the Pyromancer, but this is slow. And so the Tartarus Titans able to show some face here around the objective, and it has been reset. It may be smart from the Dragons there, Myth. They don't want to overextend on an early objective like that. You know, maybe if you get it, but you lose a couple picks, probably not worthwhile. It has been red buff invade, red buff pressure from the Titans on the last 2. 3, it looks like the Titans are going to be showing their face as well. Mike will knock up layers. Sanford Soccer on the back line being controlled by Aurora. The range damage connecting onto the back line of the Jade Dragons, and the Tartarus Titans will lock in and take 2.
The Tartarus Titans know that they've got such an advantage fighting on this duo side of the map because of Cyclonespin. This guy's damage output is just ridiculous at this point, and now with 2 dead on the Jade Dragons, 4 stacked on the left-hand side, and Panda Cat nowhere in range. The Tartarus Titans, that's their Gold Fury.
That's going to even the gold right back up as the Gold Fury whittled away by the Tartarus Titans. Might even get them just a little bit in the lead. And in fact, it is a 200 gold lead for the Jade Dragons, 400 experience lead for the Tartarus Titans, and so some quick plays by the Titans to pull this game back towards even. And that's not a surprise to the Dragons, right? I mean, that is a choice where you know the Titans are going to be walking into the red buff again. They've done it on the last 3, or the last 2. Odds are they're going to be doing it a 3rd time, and the Dragons chose to show up, and the fight just didn't work well for them.
That's the first time the Jade Dragons make a decision to show up on the left-hand side of the map. Even a little bit before that, we saw a concentrated effort to try and play on the right-hand side, trying to strip away this Pyromancer. They are actively avoiding Cyclonespin at this point, and unfortunately, Cyclonespin was able to bring the fight to them, unfortunately for the Dragons. Incredibly fortunate for the Tartarus Titans here, and the Titans now, simplified, don't need to worry about the Gold Fury. Let's head to the Pyro.
Pyromancer had been started by the Dragons earlier on, and then dropped. Started by the Tartarus Titans now, but not dropped. Fine, okay, no mana, but full on HP. He's going to get chased down here. Portal out from Hurrywin, but not taken. And Hurrywin doesn't have any mana either. It's an awkward time for the Jade Dragons to fight in outside of a steal that won't be there. No chance for the Jade Dragons, and the Tartarus Titans make a quick call, and it pays off.
Ho Yi, or Panda Cat rather, on the other side was able to take out a tier 1 tower in response. And the Tartarus Titans, when they realize that Panda Cat is playing on this left-hand side, they have to commit to that Pyromancer. It was a large rotation from Cyclonespin, who really would have not succeeded very well had they just reset there. So instead, chase out the Jade Dragons, realize that Hurrywin's drop Final K down pretty low, and then fall back, take the Pyro. But at the end of the day, that does put Panda Cat slightly ahead. This does open up the opportunity for Cyclonespin to freeze the wave at his own tier 2 tower and force Panda Cat to step a little bit further forward to try and find his own farm, and I think that he could be well suited in doing so. But Cyclonespin likes the action, does not always take the path of least resistance, and instead going to play a little further up.
And I think, Myth, you know, for a while, the meta was healers. You know, mid lane you get Aphrodite, Hell, you know, the whole 9 yards. That's where the meta went. Some off-season healing changes changed up that meta a little bit. But we see another Aphrodite here, so it's a good refresher on itemization and the cost of playing against a heavy healer. That is the Aphrodite. Already got a Pestilence for Fine, okay. Already got a Brawler's Beatstick for Sanford Soccer. Hurrywin a decent applicator of Divine Ruin as well, so that might roll into the build a little bit later on. But early investment from the Dragons, and maybe right around the right time in this game to mitigate some of that healing from Paul.
I'm curious to see if PBM elects to pick up Ankh. Ankh doesn't feel great into Afro because she's generally only healing like one other person, so you're not applying that anti-heal to too many targets, and you're not getting that additional damage on very many targets either. So we'll see if PBM maybe decides to go towards a Blink or something along those lines to make it a little bit easier to engage inside of these fights as we get a small look at how much damage Cyclonespin is doing. That was just Skewer, and that was easily 15% of
So you don't think Panda Cat's in a spot to scrap 1v1 at all with Cyclonespin?
If Cyclonespin like overcommits on his own engage, sure, Panda Cat can counterpunch, but I don't think Panda Cat chooses the fight.
Yeah, fair enough. Panda Cat is going to get jumped on by Cyclonespin. Panda's ultimate is out. Cyclonespin avoids a lot of the damage. Around the back is Aurora. No, Aegis perfectly timed from both, but Panda Cat, the first casualty through space and time, no good, but the pullback in from Sam is fantastic. Hurrywin will take his own portal in behind our Layers and Paul. 1-for-1 trade. Both hunters are down.
That's crazy, the timing of that one, right? Maybe if Cyclonespin jumps in aggressive and he does so immediately.
I love that for us.
And
that's
the Tartarus
great for us.
Titans, they're setting a little bit of an ambush here inside of the jungle. Sanford Soccer steps too far forward, could find himself the target of the 3-man stack.
Yeah, you can see the way Mike positioning, though. I think the Dragons know something is up here. Damage missing from Hurrywin. And the Tartarus Titans will take that as their opportunity to dash on in. Mike in behind Layers and Aurora here. Now the collapse is through. Aurora knocked up, and the Geb has just been left to die. Sanford Soccer now has got his second kill online, and Hurrywind will get his red buff as well.
Paul plays that so well, though, behind the wall, making sure that he stays connected to layers, but maybe stick around a little bit too long. Portal's there. PBM can close gap.
Watch out for the pull. The root is no good. The double stun from Final K is, though, Hurrywind just short on some of the damage on the back end.
Re-engage.
The follow-up stun from Paul connects onto Polar Bear Mike. As the frontliners turn some tail, Hurrywind will offer a bailout. And then one final root will be there onto layers. And so just tilting the scales a little bit is that last kill onto Aurora. The Jade Dragons able to get their red buff as well, extend that gold lead right back to 2K.
And now with the Gold Fury spawning up very shortly, I think the Jade Dragons at the 16-minute mark are feeling a little bit more comfortable taking fights on this left-hand side. I thought maybe we'd see something cheeky like an early Fire Giant attempt here from the Tartarus Titans as they were positioning over towards the right. Could have been an opportunity, considering I do think the Jade Dragons can show up to this Primal Fury, but we're only 17 minutes into this one, and the DPS without Cyclonespin on the right-hand side probably wouldn't fare.
Well, Myth, a couple pivotal power spikes here out of the mid lane as well, and maybe that'll tell us which team feels more comfortable fighting. Hurrywind has completed that core three, the core three first items that we often see on these mages, Chronos Pendant, Soul Gem, Soul Reaver. And so talk about burst damage, that's there for Hurrywind in spades. But we've mentioned how important Lotus Crown is, not only to PBM. Paul has hit that power spike out of the mid lane. He's got Chronos Pendant, Divine Ruin, and so some damage and penetration there, and then a little bit of extra damage, but utility from Paul with that Lotus Crown. So big power spikes for the first three items from both mid laners.
Yeah, Paul's survivability essentially has just gone through the roof. Not only is he getting protections from his items with the healing, as well as the damage immunity and CC immunity afforded to him by Undying Love, means that if it is Jade Dragons, if it is Sam for Soccer's job to close gap and shut down Paul, he's got a tall task ahead of him, man.
Look at the red buff.
Group up, boys.
Yeah, the red buff's respawning. We're going to bring everyone except the solo laners to the left side of the map. And thankfully for Hurrywind, this one will go over without all that much issue. And so the red buff finds its way to the Giannis's back pocket somewhat quietly. And so you go back to this neutral objective status here, Myth, where Primal Fury is up, so is the Pyromancer. We've seen teams split these in the past, but in a game like this, you're still so close. And this is maybe kind of a look back and maybe a tweak potential for the Jade Dragons. You were 2, 3, 4,000 gold in the lead in game number 2 around this point in the game. We're happy. And look, they took everything they could. Every single Fury, every single Pyromancer, those sorts of things. A little bit more cautious, though, with that lead of the Dragons here in game 3.
But where are the Jade Dragons going to go to try and push this lead? If Aurora's around, Stone Shield means your kill potential has plummeted. And if Paul's around, we already talked about everything he does for his team. And then you've got Benji alone on island, 2 HP bars, by the way. Layers has CC immunity inside of the ultimate and a double dash if he's able to land those abilities. Cyclonespin is just bullying Panda Cat right now, not really taking too many fights inside the lane. It's going to be hard for the Jade Dragons to take that fight, but PBM, having ticked over to level 12, does elect to go towards that Ankh. Will be able to strip away some of the healing of the Tartarus Titans, as well as take some of the damage or deal additional damage to whoever is the recipient there. Tartarus Titans, though, they don't care. Primal Fury pulled, reset.
Immediately reset after Aurora sent some auto attacks its way. And so Ankh will be helpful against Paul and some of the healing that the Tartarus Titans are able to do. And that second health bar you mentioned, Mifflin, that will be helped out by Fine OK, who's gotten the Sunder. So good relic choices for the Jade Dragons with those second slots. You're able to mitigate some of the advantage that the Titans have on the other parts of this map. But the Titans, Myth, don't necessarily have that same issue. Ankh is still there for Aurora, but Benji has been free to opt for one aggressive, one defensive. Layers has opted for one defensive, one aggressive. Aggressive for Aurora in this blink. And so where there's been kind of specific counter actives, relics picked up for the Jade Dragons, mainly notably out of the solo lane, Benji has got carte blanche to pick what he wants here. Panda Cat drops his ultimate defensively. Aurora rolling through Cataclysm onto Polar Bear Mike, and it connects. Knock up from Mike, though, is massive. Execute, yes please, from Layers. But Hurrywind runs back in, and the damage is huge onto Layers. Is he going to live again? He has got 60 HP.
He's out.
And the blink will secure his escape.
Unfortunate. One missed auto attack from Panda Cat cost him the kill. Now Benji's found Hurrywind, no portal.
Oh, Hurrywind, he is stunned and he is in 8.
See ya.
Benji says,
No
goodbye, goodbye. He'll say goodbye twice. Aurora gets the last bit of damage. Final K left fighting alone against 4. Sanford Soccer is going to rotate into the backside of this fight, but this fight is over, and it is in favor of the Titans.
Who's Sanford Soccer going on? Everybody on the Tartarus Titans is full HP or rapidly approaching it. They can keep up this chase.
Oh my god. And look at the healing. Look at the health on Cyclonespin. Final K has got to leave his tier 2 tower. 21 minutes in, and the Titans find a massive fight on the left side of the map. And the Jade Dragons didn't have much of a leg to stand on.
This composition from the Tartarus
You don't even get
Titans,
layers.
top to bottom, is just so annoying. And adding on to that annoyance is layers, able to limp away from yet another team fight with sub 100 HP. And this aggression isn't slowing down. Hurrywin's dead for 10, Panda Cat for 15. Pyromancer seems like a good target.
Pyromancer's on the menu, and Pyromancer's going to get ordered by the Titans. And a good time to go back and reset, maybe. Already 4,300 healing for Paul. Mike a little bit behind that at 3,000 or so. Yeah, so here's your reset status, 1,000 gold at least, and then on up the meter, 2,000 or so for Benji and Polar Bear Mike. And the big power spike hit with that 1,000 by Paul. Obsidian Shard completed. And so those birds are going to be ticking for some serious damage. Benji's hit a nice little spike here as well as far as frontline goes. Only one crit item online for Panda Cat. But the Spectral Armor will help out in that department. The reset is in from the Titans, but the Fire Giant pull is here from the Dragons.
50.
This is the type of call that could win you a game, the type of call that could lose you a game, and the Jade Dragons bail out on it almost immediately.
Mike.
But they haven't done so quick enough. The fight is huge from the
Big
Tartarus
swing.
Titans. They jump in. PBM and Panda Cat both gone, but Sanford Soccer is still on the map, and he can still make an impact. Nice double stun there from Sam, who's dodging out the execute. The portal is fantastic, and Final K blocks the last bit of damage.
2 for 2 trade as it stands,
Hurry.
but Hurry is healthy. He can continue the chase with the help of Final K, but up against the Geb Stone Shield rollout. Going to get you out of there every single time. The Tartarus Titans
Myth,
able
I'm
to stop
nervous.
it.
Hold me, I'm scared.
It's so crazy that
I'm
the Jade
scared.
Dragons go for that play, somehow survive on the tail end, and then return a ton of damage inside of the fight. Panda Cat's ultimate does a lot of that. Cyclonespin leaps in aggressive and lands into the Raining Suns.
I wonder what Hurrywin's going for here. With his
plays.
4th item. Yeah, big plays is what Hurrywin's looking at. Made a couple at 9,000 damage. Done about 1.3k higher than what Paul has been able to provide. So killing that Aphrodite has got to feel great because it's so annoying to do so otherwise. And then Cyclonespin gets taken down promptly. But Myth, that like immediate burst damage from the Tartarus Titans admittedly caught me off guard. Like the get back, roll in from Aurora and Cyclonespin skewering those health bars down. I mean I figured that fight was just over immediately. So the fact that the Dragons were able to answer back with a couple, I think, is a decent sized win for the Dragons here, who are going to regroup.
They're doing it again.
And re-pull the Fire Giant. Mid lane are Paul and Cyclonespin. yeah, you might want to pull off of it, Jade Dragons. The Fire Giant's going to get reset, but look, you're checking the Titans' response time, and it is quick.
Yeah, I think the Dragons just pulled that one to stop the Tartarus Titans from heading over to this left-hand side and stripping away that Primal Fury, just creating threat and making sure that the Titans put respect on the Dragons' ability to strip away this Fire Giant. And take a peek at those wards. Seems like the Jade Dragons are hedging all their bets on Fire Giant fights. That is a lot of sentries around the pit itself. Once the Dragons are in there, the Tartarus Titans won't have any clue, but the Titans do have some wards in the peripheries, in the edges of this engagement. They'll know when the Jade Dragons do actually approach this neutral objective.
Myth, I wondered what direction Hurrywin was going to go with that item. I'll give you a second to think about what Staff of Mirrodin's going to do. Oh, Mike whiffs the pull back onto Aurora, and that might mean this Geb is going to get out scot-free. Scott is free. Scott's name is Aurora here in this case, who rolls on back. Staff of Mirrodin picked up for Hurrywin, Myth. You know, tweaked was the utility, kind of the passive of that item. Still big cooldown numbers. And yet again, the Jade Dragons are going to play around with this Fire Giant. Benji gets rooted in place, and yet again, the Jade Dragons will back off.
They will, but they can back off and heal up with the help of PBM. So yeah, we do have a little bit of unmitigated CDR, but maybe no opportunity to talk about it as Benji
that is
leaps
annoying.
in aggressively, but what's the risk? Stone Shield, he's got a second shield inside of his own kit. If he takes too much damage, Paul will heal him up. Out of combat healing, not that bad from Aphrodite. Benji can do anything he wants.
Benji just jumps over the damage from Hurrywin here, and he is walking down all of the Jade Dragons. This sometimes opens up a Fire Giant for the backliners of the Tartarus Titans, or the team who's getting this much pressure put on the other team. But it looks like instead it's going to be a grouping by the Titans around that tier 1 tower on right. In awkward positioning can sometimes make you pay here. If you got caught out, you're in a tough spot.
Huge.
I guess you're caught out under your own tier 2 tower. It's huge from Aurora, who finds a double Cataclysm. Paul is there with the last bit of damage. Hurrywin does well to kite back in this fight. Pandacat whittling down that health bar and does the last bit of damage. Burst in from Hurrywin. Huge rotation in from Sanford Soccer, but Cyclonespin's been left alone in the back line, and the set is running wild.
Cyclonespin's taking a good deal of damage here. Stone Shield no longer available. The chase in is good. Cyclone double.
Oh, it's huge from Cyclonespin to turn this fight around.
Sam
goes back in.
He got him.
Gets the kill onto Cyclonespin, but can he get out of the rest of the fight alive? That's the question. Aurora will chase down Sam on the rollout here, and this rock is scary. Sanford Soccer will not make it. Oh, yes, he will. And the reset on the dash might just secure his escape.
I don't know. Aurora's going to be coming up pretty soon with the rollout. He's got additional movement speed, pulls him out, and loses his life. Unfortunate back off. Going to credit Paul for the kill this time around, but do not make the mistake. Sanford Soccer comes out huge inside of that team fight. Triple, ultimate, double, pull in, goes back in, shuts down Cyclonespin on the tail end, and now the Jade Dragons, from the jaws of death, turn what was a clean fight for the Titans off of a phenomenal Cataclysm from Aurora into a 3-for-3 engagement.
I want to see these two teams playing late in the postseason of this year. I mean, this is nuts how closely matched these two teams are, at least here today. And how fun has this set been to watch? Sanford Soccer comes up big towards the end of that fight. Cyclonespin does as well. There's a 20-second cushion now for the Titans without Sanford Soccer on the map, plus travel time. And so a small window to immediately pull Fire Giant with an advantage if the Tartarus Titans want to. But by the time Cyclonespin gets here, by the time that Paul gets here, it appears that that window will have closed.
Look at Sam's build. Goes for the Nemean Lion in that last slot. His job is to shut down Cyclonespin. Those block stacks are going to put in a lot of work for him, and we already know his damage output's pretty nice. Mantle of Discord has a lot of defense, but Benji just can't be stopped.
Oh my god, and Hurrywin hit Benji with an unstable vortex, and it did nothing but take some of that shielding away from Benji. And Hurrywin has played well here, inching up those damage charts. 4th in the game, 12,000. Unfortunately, Benji is just too damn hard to kill right now. Bulwark of Hope, why not? On the end of the kit here for Benji.
More shields?
Yeah, right. Good luck killing the Nike, huh? For the rest of the Jade Dragons. Hurrywin's going to have something to say about it, though. Aurora blinks in quick on the reaction. Are both Hurrywin and Pandacat. Can you turn the scales now? The overextension from the Tartarus Titans. Will it be punished?
Are you sure?
Soccer pulls 2 in. Those aren't the 2 that you want in your face.
Yeah, he got hit by back off and lost 30% of his HP for even thinking about engaging on someone that Paul's targeted with that kiss. And the Tartarus Titans, that was a fight. It really was, but you wouldn't be able to tell it by the HP bars.
All 10 ultimates in the game ready to go through space and time out from Hurrywin, and it looks like it clips Cyclonespin, who's half HP in the back line of this fight. Benji drops Sentinel and Zeus. He's pulled back in by Sanford Soccer.
Good ult.
Big ultimate from Pandacat, but he's taking no damage. Paul with the Undying Love.
Another one.
Huge from Sanford Soccer to whittle down the health bar of Aurora and Benji, and the chase is on for Fino K, and Aurora will not die. It takes a pull from Mike to get the kill.
Fire Giant had to come in for the unofficial 6-man assist just to shut down one target for the Tartarus Titans. Stone Shield, Undying Love, Heals, Cataclysm. You cannot kill these guys without a concentrated 5-man effort. That's every single ultimate from the Dragons just to take out one support. 29 minutes into this game, but that is a big pick. 35 seconds left on this Gebs respawn means that the Jade Dragons finally have an opportunity to look at the Giant.
Fire Giant picked up by the Jade Dragons and promptly dropped right back down. But the rest of the team is going to regroup here on this one. Undying Love about to be back up in this game. PBM and Hurrywin both without their ultimate. Sanford Soccer and Pandacat closing the gap on their diamond as well. And so slow on the pull here, Miff, are the Jade Dragons, just wanting to read the response by the Tartarus Titans. And finally, there is a bit of a soft commit onto the FG. Aurora's up in 5 seconds. Cyclonespin is over here on the right. Hurrywin only has Aegis, does not have beads, but that'll help him out a little bit against Cyclonespin. Through space and time is back up. Fire Giant's been dropped by the Jade Dragons at half HP.
Aurora's back going to respond. PBM's going to be slowly healing himself back up. The Jade Dragons, we saw how much effort it took. They have to do it all again.
I worked out for an hour and a half today, and this is the sweatiest I've been all day long. This is nuts between these two. We go 35 minutes in game 1. We go 41 minutes in game 2. We're 30 minutes already into game 3. Make it a 5-game set, Coop. Make it this. Make
We're
this a
talking to
real
you,
5
Commissioner. We
Yeah,
want
give
more
it, you know what?
games.
5 games between these two teams. Unfortunately, it's just Billy shaking the camera. No, no, we don't want it. Tartarus Titans and the Jade Dragons have gone the distance and then some. And unfortunately, it's going to have to come to the conclusion here at some point. Enhanced Fire Giant is now on the map, and the biggest objective of them all waits for the Titans and the Dragons to clash.
I think this has been an actual 10-minute dance around the Fire Giant, which has effectively slowed down a lot of these guys' farm. I mean, Hurrywin still doesn't have a true 6 item. Polar Bear Mike hasn't even started his. The Tartarus Titans have slowed down the farm of the Jade Dragons, and, well, they've got their builds nearly completed across the board at this point, sitting nearly 5,000 gold in the lead. Experience still in their favor, but means a lot less 31 minutes in. The Jade Dragons, it's been their win condition plenty of times in the past.
My God.
If Hurrywin can land a 2-man ultimate 50 Calpo raid down center lane, might be able to remove one of these carries from the Titans. That said, if the Titans can close cap on a Hurrywin, dude does not stand a chance.
Look, you don't have 2 Cthulhus in this game, but you got 4 shields to deal with onto Benji. I mean, Aurora with his shielding, Benji with his shielding, the Undying Love. I mean, the frontline safety has been a dream for Benji and Aurora over these last 2 games. It's when the Jade Dragons have withstood that dive. Think back to the last one. Benji jumped in,
5
dropped
times.
Sentinel of Zeus,
Twice.
and then Panda Cow was able to jump out of one. Hurrywin was able to use beads and portal out of the ultimate as well, and that's when the Jade Dragons were able to turn around after weathering the storm of that initial engagement. But you're playing on real thin margins here. Sanford Soccer's on the other side of the Tartarus Titans here. 4 grouped up for the Jade Dragons. Hurrywin rather, going back to base. You have to imagine he's ready to complete an item, and he is. Divine Ruin finally online for this Giannis, but watch out, Myth. Benji is here. It's going to be a collapse
Good route.
from the Tartarus Titans. The Jade Dragons caught in between the Tartarus Titans. Benji has found the
Massive.
targets. Oh, but the stun is huge. It has delayed out the ultimate from Benji, and there will be no further engagement from the Titans.
Benji gets
Oh,
pulled
he's
in. Polar Bear Mike is able to bring Benji to the back line, but he's so
Oh,
healthy.
Space and Time hits layers, but that's the only person it hits. The Jade Dragons find some damage. Fino K takes some damage. And there are some ultimates down. No Undying Love, no Sentinel of Zeus. That's big, but there is no through space and time from Hurrywin.
Fino K is so low HP, it's going to be a long time till
Whoa.
he's at fighting strength.
Aurora knocks up Fino K, who immediately returns a stun. Good damage from Panda Cat, and the Soul Gem proc will help healing up Fino K. Sanford Soccer is the ace in this engagement. He's kind of flexing over in the mid lane. The rotation in behind, especially since Paul doesn't have Undying Love, could flip this game on its head. Enhanced Fire Giant has started, but it is not going quickly. Into the fight go the Jade Dragons.
Every single relic available to the Dragons at this point, and nearly every ultimate as well. Just Hurrywin waiting for that one to come back up. A couple of key tools lost by the Tartarus Titans here. Blink not available for Aurora means that Cataclysm is going to be a little bit harder to come by in the near future, and neither one of these teams has got the confidence going forward. Like, take a peek at this. Panda Cat actually going to put a Shadow Steel Shuriken on the
Alrighty.
very end of this build. That's some more crit, that's some anti-heal, but on the other side,
Yeah, but-
Cyclonespin, anti-crit.
And Benji, also anti-crit.
Good God.
Hard enough to kill this Nike anyway, but there's a Spectral Armor for Benji and a Spectral Armor for Cyclonespin. FG Jr. gets taken down. Hardly,
I like that.
Hardly the most exciting objective that could have been fought over now. And so I think it's important to look at map state here, Mifflin. If any team gets swept at this point and there's enough alive on the other team, it's game over, right? I mean, these death timers are a minute. If you get decided and a Hunter and a Frontline is alive on the other team, you have to feel like the game just ends. But only 2 Phoenixes are exposed. The Jade Dragons missing left, missing right. Still some towers to work through on the Tartarus Titans side of the map. So there is still some fighting to be had, should the teams be strong enough after the Fire Giant fight.
Layers' damage output is crazy. He just autoed for 900 with a hi-rez proc, so maybe Hurrywin has to play very worried about him from the base at this point, as he's going to rejoin his team near this Fire Giant in the very near future. I don't know what breaks the floodgates between these two squads right now. Any pick feels pretty impactful, but again, the Jade Dragons have got a tall task. Who are you picking on the side of the Tartarus Titans? They pulled Benji into 5 members last time around, and all they do is force his ultimate and an ultimate from Paul, and it's an easy disengage. The damage output and the ease of play of this Tartarus Titans draft is high on both of those things.
So I want to ask, this is a unique question. If you're a fan of one team or the other, who's feeling the most comfortable right now? Who do you think is the least worried? Dragons fans or Titans fans going into what could be the final fight? Who feels like they have the best positioning in the game in your mind right now? Or is it dead even? Dead even's an answer. You're allowed to answer that way.
I think the Tartarus Titans, you gotta go by the
I
statistics
agree.
on the screen,
No,
right?
my answer would be if I'm a Titans fan.
They just have so much healing
Agreed.
and survivability. They're creating so much space. They're generating it. But the damage output from the Tartarus Titans has not super impressed inside of these fights. The Jade Dragons, they've got to work through shields, heals, shields, and more shields. But they're still able to find a pick here or there.
A roar. Oh, but Sam is going to pull a roar back in. And they're shielding there to delay anything further from happening.
I think he might shield again later.
Yeah, I think there might be another shield for Aurora at some point. Maybe Benji throws one out there on the map at some point. Fire Giant surrounded by the Tartarus Titans here. It is started, not just surrounded, but promptly dropped off here as well. The Jade Dragons grouping up as four. Sanford Soccer, the most involved in a grouping that we've seen him. It's normally been Susano over in the mid lane rotating in after, but he is with the rest of his team here at this moment. And we will back off just for the time being. These teams are hell-bent on making me nervous here today, I suppose. We're 36 minutes in.
It's 20
They've just
minutes
been
they've
poking.
been dancing.
I know, we have been hanging out. I don't know what the slowest ballroom dance is, Miff, but these two teams have been doing. It's like a middle school dance, the two sides of the room. Everyone's staring at one another. Nobody wants to cross over to the other side. Right now, it looks like the Titans are a little bit more confident. They want to ask the Jade Dragons to dance. But the Jade Dragons still a little bit nervous, sitting in the chairs along the side of the walls. Primal Fury gets taken down by Cyclonespin. And if the Jade Dragons were positioned aggressively enough, maybe you can immediately start a fight. But they're not. Two of them are backing.
No, they had no clue
Oh,
until
no.
the very last second.
Oh,
Instead,
is
it's
this-
PBM
Is this
taking a
it?
lot.
PBM jumped on and stunned. Hurrywind sends through space and time into the back, and he is rotated in as well. Mike will survive. And you are playing with the thinnest of margins. And that is a sigh of relief from Polar Bear Mike that he does not end up dying there. You are missing the ultimate from both Mike and Hurrywind. That's an advantage
There's
for the
Cataclysm.
Tartarus Titans. Oh
Hurry.
my God, Hurrywind is caught out here. Got to be a kill onto the Giannis, but
Big
he's
rip.
waltzing on away. Benji drops the slow portal through from Hurrywind, but Cyclonespin will clean up the kill.
Hurrywind buys as much time as he can, but not
Oh,
enough.
no.
Set for Soccer. In some trouble. Has to use the ultimate for Peel.
Oh, but now the Tartarus Titans, they can smell blood in the water. They can see red in their eyes.
That's
But
all.
it's the Jade Dragons on the retreat. Polar Bear Mike goes down.
Tartarus Titans have removed 2 dragons from the map. The 5-headed threat of the Jade Dragons
Wow, they're gonna go
reduced
back.
to 3. And the Tartarus Titans, they've been dancing for it for 20 minutes. And damn it, they're going to take it. Enhanced Fire Giant to the Order side team. Only one Tier 2 tower standing between the Titans and the Jade Dragons exposed. Triple birds. And they're playing with so much time. Still 30 seconds left on Hurrywind. They could go now.
Yeah, I say, wow, they go back, but now that I see how much time there still is to push, not all that surprising. You got 5 members with the Enhanced Fire Giant. This has got to be a miracle play by PandaCat, by the Jade Dragons. PandaCat put up a quadra kill on a base defense yesterday, but he's got to do it again here today. Ultimate is not back, so he will not have that utility. The Tartarus Titans, in just shy of 40 minutes, walk their way into the
Final
Jade
K.
Dragons side of the
See ya.
base, execute from layers, onto Final K, stun, onto Sanford Soccer. The rest of the eyes turn towards the Titan of the Tartarus Titans. Hurrywind back on the map. All the damage pouring into the Titan, and it is there. It is enough. The Tartarus Titans take it in 3.
What a tough loss for the Jade Dragons in nearly a 2-hour set. It is the Tartarus Titans come out ahead this time around, and in convincing fashion. That the P's and B's diff, right? I mean, it just felt like their composition was undeal-with-able.
Undeal-withable.
Undeal-withable. I'm sticking with it.
I think we have bought ourselves some leeway in making up some words
it's
here.
been long.
But it has been a long
We
set.
ran out of the normal ones.
That's right. We ran out of everything normal that you could say. By the end here, we have to make something up. I mean, the game plan is clear here. If you're the Titans, let's draft the most obnoxious combo of
They did it.
frontliners that we can and run down the Jade Dragons. And that's my fault. I picked the Jade Dragons to go 2-0 here this weekend, and they go 0-2. So that's on me. I'm sorry, everyone, but you're welcome if you're a Tartarus Titans fan. The Titans continue their reign of terror. Down go the Jade Dragons. Up go the Tartarus Titans. To the break room go Miff and I, and to a break we go.
Hey there, Smite fans, Aggro here. Look, every single year, the SPL just keeps getting better. Season 7 was incredible, and in Season 8, I'm sure our players are going to take their game to the next level. But in order to do that, they're going to need the best gear they can get their hands on. And that's why I'm so excited to announce that the title sponsor for Season 8 of the SPL is Alienware. Yeah, that Alienware. Our players are getting the best of the best in computer gaming. These Alienware Aurora Ryzen Edition PC setups are insane. Not only will these be the PCs that the players will compete on once we are in studio, but Alienware is also providing one for each player at their home setup to make sure their practice is as good as possible. Now let's get down to brass tacks. The specs on these Alienware Aurora Ryzen Edition desktops are amazing. An AMD Ryzen 9 16-core processor.
That's a lot of cores.
That's plenty of processing power.
That's a lot of cores. Plenty of cores.
If you want to stream, this is the way to go.
I know a lot about my cores, so. I mean, Pilates, right?
64 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM.
What? Is that true?
That is true. I mean, this thing has 64 gigs of DDR4 RAM.
Which you can do literally anything with.
Literally anything.
I've never had more than 16 gigs.
That's quadruple the amount I have at home.
And one of the hottest commodities in the PC world, an NVIDIA GeForce 3090 graphics card.
Insane how much better this is than what I have.
The best graphics you really need, Ultra, of course.
Content's gonna look good.
And what's the point of all the power if you can't see it? Players will also be using the Alienware 25-inch 240 Hz monitors.
Man, when I load into scrims with this bad boy, I'm gonna feed so hard. And it's gonna be in perfect picture quality.
We are so excited to be partnering with Alienware for Season 8 of the SMITE Pro League. And the best part is, this VIP treatment, it's not just for the pros. You too can get the best possible SMITE experience. Just go to smitegame.com/Alienware and use code SMITEAW to get special discounts on some of Alienware's best products. Thanks again to Alienware. Make sure you're following them on Twitter and Instagram. That's at Alienware on both platforms. And you can join their community at alienwarearena.com.
And welcome back to the desk of the SMITE Pro League, powered by our good friends over at Alienware. Make sure you take yourself to smitegame.com/Alienware. Get the inside scoop on all of the great products that Alienware provides, not just to us here in the studio, but to the players at their own home. The Alienware Aurora Ryzen 10 desktop, the 240 Hz 25-inch gaming monitor, and anything else that Alienware has. Again, at smitegame.com/Alienware. Use the code SMITEAW. Get yourself a nice little discount, and even join them on their social media at Alienware on Twitter and Instagram, and go to alienwarearena.com to see what else that Alienware has to offer just besides the cool gear. I mean, they've got all kinds of giveaways and fun stuff they're running. At one point, you were able to get Alienware Raw. Don't think you can get that one anymore. Maybe we can convince them to try and bring that one back. Anyways, game number 3 done here. Tartarus Titans come up with a very long-winded but very big win, and I'm going to say it probably the most obnoxious team comp that I've ever seen put into effort. I mean, they went through that last little team fight at Fire Giant, and they didn't even use their Core 3 Ultimate in that 3v3s, and they just able to run down at the Titan, man. Tartarus Titans come up with a big win here against Dragons.
They did such a stellar job. Admittedly, at the end of the day, just having really, really big bodies up front and letting Cyclone have fun, although it was really fun. It was much earlier than the very end of the game, watching specifically Paul and Aurora chase down through the jungle as much as they could. Something about a Geb Aphrodite combo was not something I expected to see running at anybody, but they still got the kill, and they did a lot. I mean, there's a lot of healing, there's a lot of frontline, there's a lot of shielding, a lot of slows, a lot of control. I mean, it just feels like in a lot of these games, especially like games 2 and games 3, it didn't matter how much the Dragons did early on, it just came down to big team fight changes that the Titans were much better at executing. And I will have to give the shout out to it. We've seen a stellar set of games from Cyclonespin, and on the other side, the Hou-Yi, despite some really well-placed ults, maybe some good damage, didn't hit nearly as hard as the set did.
That little play right there, it's something I got a nice little chuckle out of whenever I was watching him, because it's Sam. Now, normally, that's a really smart play. Gab's about to roll out, you're like 10% health. He doesn't have any visibilities up besides the rollout. Pull him in, cancel that, now he can't hit you with the damage. Unfortunately, he's linked to an Aphrodite, and one back off immediately comes after the pull and gets a nice little pop there. Paul finishes off 4-1 and 6. Aurora with a 1-2 and 11 on that Geb, and I think what was really just said during the game was probably the best thing is how do you shred through not just the health bars of any one particular person, but the amount of shields that were provided, especially if Paul is ever linked to Benji. You have Paul's ultimate as an extreme backup. You have Benji's natural shield from Sentinel Zeus, and you have Aurora's that just comes naturally from his stone shield. And then if you have anything like Bulwark thrown in the mix of all of that, I mean, there's absolutely...
And then you also have Paul's healing behind
And then you
that.
have
So it's
Paul's healing.
you had 7 health
Like, that
bars.
ultimate is the the ultimate, and no pun intended, that is literally the ultimate fail-safe of if everything goes wrong, we still have this. We do have some good news for you guys. First off, we do want to apologize for what happened in game number 1. We're trying to figure out exactly what happened in order to try and relieve that for the next times that we do have it. But the good news is that we do at least have the replay for you guys of what happened at the very end of game number 1. We do have that video available to you, and this kicks off right before the fight goes through, right as Fine OK goes to that initiation with it, and it cuts off right as Paul goes down at the tail end of the fight. If you want, I'm not going to give any kind of major play-by-play. You guys can kind of watch as it goes, and it's right around this moment here is when we had our cutoff. But what you don't get to see is just Panda Cat in the back line just tearing through every single person on the Tartarus Titans on this set. He ends up getting a triple kill to close out the game. And, well, there you go. That's everything that you really missed in game number 1.
He did what Cyclone was just doing in the last game, but in game 1. Like, he got into the back line, he did the kills, and he survived doing it. It's something that is very... I don't know. It's good to see the Dragons were able to pilot it. It was kind of, I will admit, like a little hard on Panda Cat just because this weekend hadn't really been as poppin' from him as much as I expect to see. So this is a good performance from him. Although I say that he got a quadra kill defending the base the other day, so maybe it's just in some of these key moments. On the other side of the screen, though, it really is like the Titans maybe expecting getting separated a little bit, having no necessarily secure there in game number 1 to make sure the backline stays 2 alive. Didn't matter because in games 2 and games 3, their team fights were impeccable.
Again, we do apologize that we couldn't provide that to you guys live as the game was happening or even right immediately after. We are working on trying to figure out a remedy to figure out exactly what went wrong and try and get that fixed up for the future. But at the very least, we were able to go back. And going to give a big shout out to Jithens. They were able to go back and really get that through. So throw some love for Jithens. But let's throw some love over to Aurora for our post-game interview standing by with Dulcin.
That's right, Aurora's with me. Poor guy. You get a big set win, then we immediately have to go back to the replay of game 1, the only one that you guys lost. That was like 2 hours ago, though, so we've forgotten all that. Look, I have to feel like as a frontliner, it was probably some of the most fun you could have, at least in game 3, right? I know it was more Benji and Paul there in game 2. Did you guys just go in today knowing you were going to draft around some obnoxious frontline compositions?
Yeah, we kind of had an idea of what we wanted to play. It kind of shifted after the first game, but it worked out for us really well. So
it did. I mean, look, two Cthulhu's, and then you get like 9 shields for you or Benji there down the stretch. I think this is an important set for you guys to win, though. You lose in game 1. You mentioned to me maybe some rumblings behind the scenes that this is a Titans team. If you lose early, it's harder for you to win a set down the stretch, and I think you guys dispelled some of that today.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just happy that we were able to bring it back after losing the first game. I know a lot of people think if we lose the first game, we're just going to kind of fold over in the second game.
Right.
I know there's been sets where we've lost the second game and still won the third game, but everybody's always like, if they lose the first game, they lost. But today, we lost the first game, and we still did really well in the second and third game and took the set back for us.
That's right. Look, it's still a terrifying team. One final question for you here, Roar. You still have Leviathans and Bolts to play down the stretch, if I'm remembering correctly. Do you like your odds going 2-0 against those teams?
I mean, yeah. Take it one game at a time, and we'll do well.
Fair enough. Love it. Thanks, Aurora, for sitting down with me. Congrats on the win. We'll go back to the desk to round out the set.
Always got to love the enthusiasm and confidence coming out of Aurora and really the rest of the Titans here. And they've got a very tall task up ahead of them, as highlighted. Leviathans and Bolts still to go for the rest of your season. Again, this is just going up towards the group stages. This is just the round robin, but every single one of these games is important because there is still possibility for them to either fall out of this potential second seed or for them to even try and secure the second seed. So every single win here is going to be big by the Titans. Getting one here today, specifically over the Dragons, is a big stepping stone for them. Because now they just have a couple more to kind of close out this week.
And you have to, remember, right? The last time that they faced the Leviathans, they beat the Leviathans. Last time they faced the Dragons, not including today, they beat the Dragons. They didn't get to play the Bolts in the playoffs. So I'd have to look much further back. And you know what? I think that's next week. So that's prepared for week 5 stuff. That's me studying over the weekend, not necessarily right now, to see how that's going to go. I think the biggest thing right now is the big separation. Titans, and even the Dragons, like not necessarily out of the conversation for the top 2, but with 5-0 being there for the Leviathans, depending on how the Titans-Leviathans set goes tomorrow, there is a lot of pressure on some of these teams. The Bolts, depending on how this next set goes as well. That changes a lot for whether or not you even make it up there.
Yeah, 5-2, the worst that the Leviathans can go to kind of close their first half of the phase down, because they are sitting 5-0 and they only have those 2 sets left to play. So at the very worst, they drop down there. At the very best for the Leviathans, they can kind of close out here, but it's all going to be up to spoilers here for the Tartarus Titans. They are at that 2nd seed, sitting currently at 4-1 with a match up against the Leviathans. That could have a lot of things to shake up here, but that's later down the week. We still got the Olympus Bolts and the Solar Scarabs as our next set coming up, another one here live in the studio. If you haven't already, go ahead and take a nice little break. We're going to go ahead and get ourselves all situated and get ready for that next matchup. We'll be back in just a few minutes.